This conference will now be recorded. This conference will now be recorded.
So hello everyone, welcome to day 16 in our GCP Cloud Architect training, where yesterday we had stopped at this GSUtil rsync concept, which we learned what could be the use of it. It is basically to sync between two Google Cloud storage buckets or between a local directory and Google Cloud storage bucket. We saw that. So today what we'll see is basically we will look into data encryption part. So this is one of the important stuffs. So how the data is going to be encrypted, what are the various ways, if say for example, if you're an organization who does not much worry about the encryption stuffs, all those things, what is the option which you get? If you are a organization or a customer who's very much like requires a very high-end configuration or something which you want more control. If you are looking for such kind of a stuff, what kind of encryption support Google provides is what we are going to see. The first and the foremost kind of encryption which you get is Google Managed Encryption Key, GMEK. So this is not a popular acronym, but for the simplicity reason, I have put it as GMEK. But usually, if you are talking to any Googlers or anything, they may not recognize this as an acronym. So better talk to them as Google Managed Encryption Key. So this is the default encryption which you get, uh, and this is turned on by default, and you don't need to do anything extra. So for an organization where you don't have the necessary manpower to do handle all this encryption stuff, generate keys, manage them, rotate them, all those things, for such organization, Google Managed Encryption Key is going to be a best fit. And what is the action required from your side? Nothing. It's by default turned on. So by default, it is turned on and you don't need to do anything. So all the Google Cloud Storage buckets which we created from the last 3 week, 3 classes are all using Google Managed Encryption Key. So that's the first option. And the standards are really pretty high. So they use advanced encryption standards, 256 standards. So, and the key gets rotated automatically without you doing anything. Everything is fully managed by Google there. So that's the first option which you get, and this is what we were using all these days. All the three classes which you are using, that is the option. The second option which you get is customer managed encryption key, and I have seen people use this acronym CMAC, and not only in GCP, even in other cloud providers also they use the same name. So what happens here is, instead of Google generating a key for you, you can generate a key and you keep the key in a service called as key management service, KMS. So that is what you are going to use. So Google is not going to generate a key, but you are going to generate the key, and manage the key in the cloud itself. So that's the difference here. Was there a question, folks? Okay. So this is the second option, CMAC, where you generate the key. And the fun fact is, for security reason, you cannot see the key, the actual key. Okay. I'll show you that documentation if you are interested. So you generate the key, and the key is going to be referenced by a link kind of a stuff or a resource name. You just use that, but you will never see literally the cryptographic key by easily. So you cannot even see. That's for security reason. They've hidden it. So that's the second option. The third option is, there are few, say for example, there could be few objects which are very sensitive, maybe in a normal storage bucket, which is going to use Google Managed Encryption Key. Maybe one or two files are very confidential files, and you don't want to take any risk of putting a normal default encryption, but you want to turn on, you want to have a key generated by you, kept with you in on-prem, not in GCP. So this could be a very hypothetical scenario, folks. Let's assume there is a company XYZ. They are using GCP, um, and they are part of a specific country. Now, all of a sudden, there is some issue with that company, and the government in that country, ABC country, wants to do a audit, something like a IT raid, something of that sort. Now, they may go to Google and say, this company has some issues, we want to access their data. Now, this is again hypothetical. How much it can happen, I'm not very sure. But if somebody grants access, basically uh, grants access to the government of that country, and if they are using Google Managed Encryption Key or customer sub managed encryption key, the key is in Google itself. So there is a chance for someone to look into the content. Simple. But if that company had put every data using customer supplied key, the key is with them and the key is not in Google Cloud, it is somewhere else outside. So it could be in AWS, or it could be, say for example, it could be in on-prem, maybe kept in a secure vault like HashiCorp vault. So in that case, even if government decides, even if government Google decides to see the content, they cannot see it because the key is not with them. So this is the ultimate thing which you get. But the key part is, if you use customer supplied encryption key and you lose the key, nobody can help you to recover the data unless you hire a super hacker who can do some reverse engineering and get it. So those are three options which you get: Google Managed Encryption Key, CMAC, and CSEK, Customer Supplied Encryption Key. So let's look into a small demonstration of all the three. The first one we have already done it, but for the sake of demonstration, we can do it one more time. Okay, so let me just jump into a demonstration. So we are in our GCP console. So if I just click on create, the first one, Google Managed Encryption Key, I'm just going to show it in the UI. So I'm just going to call this one project ID hyphen GMEK, Google Managed Encryption Key. So let's use a region bucket for this demonstration, and I'm going to use Singapore. Done. Standard, which is nothing but regional or multi-regional kind of stuff. Till here, everything is the default stuff. When you want to do your encryption part, basically this is where you focus more on. So you get two options. So at a bucket level itself, you can make that bucket to have a encryption setting which is Google Managed Encryption. And you see this here, folks. No configuration required from your side. No action. By default, it is already checked. This is the beauty. So this is where usually people call as data at rest, data at transit, both at encrypted, both at data at rest and at transit is encrypted in GCP. So this is the default behavior. That's it. So click on create. Now, if I just go up, you see this column. So let me just remove this column. Enable rules, or sorry, labels. I'll just remove it. So you see encryption, folks. Google Managed Encryption Key. So maybe today we are not going to discuss anything on lifecycle rule. I'm just going to remove that. Okay. So it shows Google Managed Encryption Key. Now, if you upload any data into this, that object is also going to have Google Managed Encryption Key. So let me just do that using my console. Uh, Customer supplied encryption key option is not there here. I'll show you why it is not there in the UI. I'll just tell you that. There's some specific reason why it is not kept there. I'll tell you that. In the UI, you cannot do it. You cannot, if you want to have an object with customer supplied key, you cannot have that in the UI. You have to do it in a terminal only. And we are going to do the demo, Anil B. And something happened as an incident yesterday. What I saw was I had lots of data in my Cloud Shell. I don't know what happened. I lost all my data. There was some good amount of content which I had kept in my Cloud Shell. This is after like 3 years of working in GCP, 3+ years of working in GCP. For the first time, the data in my Cloud Shell was lost, even though it was persistent. So lots of data. So if you see the yesterday's recording, you would have seen when I put ls, there are lots of stuffs. And I also was working on a project. Somehow those content was deleted. So now I have to rework on that project. So maybe I thought the best option is use the learning which we learned yesterday. Have a Google Cloud Storage bucket. You keep on syncing everything, whatever is there, the entire slash home slash what's your name. So sync every directory there. If you rely heavily on Cloud Shell like me, do that. So that was the learning which I did yesterday. So I lost everything, so I had to rework. But the learning is back it up somewhere. And this happened for the first time actually. I was thinking maybe somehow Google can restore it, but I don't know whether I can raise a ticket or anything. Anyway, it's a free trial account. So let me just copy some content, folks. So what I'll do, I'll just make a file called as gme.txt. You can see this content easily in a transparent encryption is very much transparent here. So that's the content. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just do a gsutil cp gmek dot text file, and I'm going to put this file here. File copied. Now when I go inside this bucket and I see this encryption is turned on by default, I can see, and to copy it you're going to mention the key, and while reading it decryption also you need to mention the key. But this entire process is going to be so transparent for you, it looks as if like you are not doing anything. So I'm able to see it in the browser itself, the content. So decryption, when I'm looking downloading it or viewing it, basically decryption is happening. So, but this is very very transparent to me. So this is the first option. So let's go to the second option, where we'll create one more bucket with customer supplied or customer managed encryption key. So if I just go to customer managed encryption key, where the key is going to be generated by me, not by Google. Uh, let's keep everything default. So under the advanced section, I see customer managed encryption key managed via KMS, key management service. So when I do that, it's going to show me a drop down where it's going to ask me, is there any key which I can use? I've not even configured anything, so it's not going to show anything there. So what I should do basically is, if I know the key resource ID, I can mention it, or I have to go and generate it. So I don't have that information. So, and the format is going to be project, the project name, location. It could be global, or if you are doing something in Singapore, the Singapore region, and key rings, which is going to hold groups of keys, the actual key name. So this is the format which you have to do. Don't worry, Google is going to generate it for us in this format. So we don't have the key resource. We have to go and generate it. How do I do it? Click on your navigation menu, and this is not under GCP. This is not under your Google Cloud Storage. So you have to go to security. So this is all towards the security part, right? So that's where this product offering is going to be in security, where you are going to see cryptographic keys. So you have to click on this. Let me just click on it, cryptographic keys. So this is under your security section. So go to cryptographic keys. So KMS API extends the customer control over the encryption key. So I have not enabled the API because the first time we are doing it. So when I enable it, certain service account also going to be created. We know this. Now we have seen that pattern. So let me enable it. Once I enable it, I'm just going to create something called as key ring. And the key ring can have multiple keys in it. And when you generate the keyring, you are going to mention basically the region, whether it's a global or a regional one. So that's it. Key management service lets you create, use, rotate, manage cryptographic keys for cryptographic operations. Please remember that only when you use KMS, it's going to have that key rotation capability. Remember that. Create a keyring. So what is a keyring? Keyring groups keys together to keep them well organized. So, so create a key ring, and inside this keyring you can have groups of keys. So used for cryptographic purpose. So I'm just going to give a name, something like badge 6 key ring. Now the location can be global, or it could be the location global, multi-regional, or regional. Now you see Asia, you see sorry, my bad, my bad. So it could be global, regional, or uh, multi-regional. So you have different options. I'm just going to use regional for now. I'm going to choose Singapore. I'm just going to choose only Singapore. So I can make it with global, make my life simple, but I wanted to use a specific region and do it. So this is my key ring, which is going to have groups of keys. So let me click on create. That's it. Now I have created the key ring. Now inside that, you want to generate a key, or you want to import a existing key, or um, some external keys. So import and external, we are not going to explore it. So first time we are exploring, let's keep it very simple. So a cryptographic key is what we are going to generate. A standard customer managed encryption key. The key material will be generated for you, basically. Now let's give a name. Let's give a name. And whenever you're generating this key, right, there's going to be some kind of a protection level in which infrastructure it is running, basically. Whether this key is generated via software based, so via the software based, or is it generated on a dedicated hardware, HSM, so hardware security module. So usually in US defense and all, there is a specific compliance called as FIPS security standards. So when you're generating any key, right? Say for example, in very simple terms, you are generating a security key, a key in your laptop itself using a software written in Python, Java, or any language. But what if the laptop on which you're running is basically already compromised, hacked, it has malwares, all those things. So when you run a key in it, the key is of no use, right? Somebody has already got to know what is the key which you have generated it. So basically, to avoid all those things, Google provides you two options. So either it could be software based protection level. For beginning stage, that's going to be good enough. And if you have some specific requirement compliance like FIPS usually used, you can use HSM, a hardware security module, where it's going to be a dedicated one where it's going to run this, generate this entire key and manage it in those infrastructure basically. For our demonstration purpose, let's keep it as software based. And just for your information, when Google uses Google managed encryption key, they also rely on software protection level only. It's not HSM. Now the key, you can have the key in two different fashions, symmetric keys, where for encrypting and decrypting, for both the operations you are going to use the same key. If you want asymmetric, basically you're going to have a different key for decryption purpose. Again, we are doing it for the first time. Let's keep it as default, which is one key used for both encryption and decryption. Now this is the beautiful option which you get, rotation period. So you can have a custom rotation. Every 1 day you want to rotate it, your choice. By default, it is 90 days of rotation. So the next rotation is going to be in the month of June, 12th of this thing. So every this thing it's going to happen. So what we did basically, we are generating a key, and the protection level is software based, not a hardware security module, HSM, and it is basically a symmetric key. Both encryption and the decryption can be done with the same key. That's it. Now, where is that key? It's going to be generated using the software, but you will not be able to see the key literally through your eyes. Basically, you will not be able to see it. So let me click on create. All right, so we have the key. So now how will I use this key? So you cannot see the key, as I mentioned, the content of the key, that encrypted content, you will not be able to, the other key, you will not be able to see it. So what you should do basically is you should click on this three vertical dots. Whenever you want to use this, so you have to use this resource name. So I have just copied the resource name, and the resource name is going to be something like this, the format which you saw. Project, the project ID, location, instead of global, we have a specific region, the key ring, then the key ring name, your cryptographic key name. So the same format is going to be there. Now you have to mention this resource ID in your bucket creation, during the bucket creation. So let me just go here. So I can put a new tab. I can put a new tab. Create a new bucket. I'll call with my project ID. I'll call this as Google Manage Encryption Key. Region. Singapore. Region. All good. Now the most important thing in this demonstration is selecting customer supplied encryption key. So now the drop down should have an option which was not previously showing anything, because we have created a cryptographic key. So just select this and you should be able to do it. Now, since the key which we did was a regional one by if your bucket is not in, if you're not provisioning a bucket in that region, say for example, instead of Singapore, you are using it in Taiwan, if I just go, I will not be able to see that key. I'll not see any key there unless it is a global one, unless it's a global one. So that is where that connection of your location is going to come into picture. So let me make it back to Singapore. Done. It shows up. Now when you do this, right, there's going to be one service account which got generated. The service account is service hyphen your project number gs hyphen project.im. So this service account should have the necessary permission basically to encrypt and decrypt with the selected key. So you have to grant this, and this is at a bucket level, not at a project level. Only for this bucket you should have this access. So make a note of this uh, service account. I'll show you once we have clicked on grant what's going to happen. So you have to grant this so that that encryption decryption can happen. Grant it. Done. Go create. Click on create. Now I have my bucket created. If I just go to the main screen and look at it, you see this. You will be able to see that it is now customer manage encryption key option there. So now you go upload anything, you should be able to see basically the files which you upload is going to use that key which you generated basically and managed in KMS. Now if I just click on this, click on show info panel, you'll see a specific role which was granted to this bucket. I'll just remove this one. Inherited, I don't want to see the inherited one. Encrypt, decrypt. Okay, not here actually. So if I just click on the key here, click on, okay, first refresh. Cryptographic keys. Click on the ring, key ring, then the key, specific key. And if I click on show info panel, you see this folks, there's a new entry here. So this is that one. To this specific key, so you have given the KMS crypto key encryptor and decryptor role. So with this, it should be able to do it basically. So that's what has happened. Now if I click on the other, that was only one key. So you see this was that grant part. When you clicked on grant, right, basically it created this part behind the scene. Now let me just upload a file so that you can see what's going to happen. So I'm just going to copy the same thing. So the file is copied. Now I'll just use Sorry, I was on mute. So if I just copy that CMAC content, then you should be able to see now the object, the specific object. It is now with customer managed encryption key option. Now, if I click on this content, can I see it? Will it going to be decrypting, encrypting, all those things on the fly without me supplying any key? Let's just see it. It works. It works. The only difference is you have generated a key, not generated by Google, and you can control how frequently the rotation should happen. So you have little control there. So this is the second option which we have seen. Now the third option as per the slide is customer supplied encryption key. So you have to generate the key, you have to manage the key yourself, and you have to supply it while encryption process, and you have to supply it while decryption process. So you have full control there. Basically, let's try to see how we do it. Basically, so I have a small script for this, which I'm going to use. So first of all, I'll show the content which we are going to upload. This is the content. This file content can be seen using a customer supplied encryption key. First of all, you have to generate a key. So you have to generate a key. So what I'm going to use is basically I'm going to use a Python code. You can use any language of your choice to generate the code. So I'm going to use Python. So I'm just going to show you what is the content of this Python. The content is not important basically, but if you are very curious, I'm just going to show you that. So basically it's going to use this random module, 32 byte, and encode it, base 64 encoding, then it's going to just output it. That's it. 2 lines of code only, but written in a very nice way. It was a copy paste from the Google official documentation. So very nicely created. So I've just copy pasted it. What I'll do is I just generate it. So because it's a Python code, so I have to run it like Python. This is my encryption key. So now this is the key, right? I can see it. Literally, I can see it. But this was not the case with our Google managed one or Google customer managed one. So customer supplied, I can see literally the key. And this is now your responsibility to keep this key in a secure place, and you should never keep it in Google. Otherwise, the whole purpose is going to be defeated. So this Python code is not in the Google Drive, Deepak. I'm going to upload it. So um, I'll upload it at the end of the day, so you can look into that code if you want. Okay, so the key is there. What I will do is I wanted to keep the key, otherwise I'll forget it. So what I'll do is the key is generated. Now I have a small script which I have created. So let me just show you the content of the script. So this is the content of the script. Let me just save it and come out. So what is the content of the script? It creates a regional storage bucket called as the project ID hyphen customer supplied encryption key. Then it uses gsutil to copy a text file into the bucket which we created. But there is some top level parameter which we are sending with hyphen o as a specifier. What is this? Basically gsutil encryption key with the value which you are going to send. I'm going to send it as an argument. So basically, so this is made as a script. Basically, if you were to send directly, right, you run gsutil minus o uh, gsutil colon encryption key. It's not keys, it's encryption key with the key which you have generated now. You just pass this and you are going to encrypt the data. So instead of me doing it, I thought let me do it in a small script fashion. So what I'll do is execute this sh file, and it expects a argument. The argument is nothing but your key. So where is my key? It is here. I'm just going to copy it. So what is this key is going to do? First, create a bucket. Create a bucket, and once the bucket is created, it's going to copy a file called as demo.cmac, sorry, C customer supplied encryption key, and it's going to use this key to encrypt this data. So let me hit enter. Bucket is getting created, file also copied. Now job done. Go to your Google Cloud Storage. You will see your third storage bucket which got created, but the encryption is still Google managed only. So it is not basically the standard or regional does not make any difference for us. We know the difference there. So it's just a naming convention. So, but it is still Google managed. Let me at least see whether inside, whether the object is customer supplied. Does it show as customer supplied? Yes, it shows customer supplied. So now to answer a question from Anil B, why it is not available in the UI when we create it is basically the requirement is not uh, what Google has seen is nobody wants to create a bucket, complete bucket with customer supplied encryption key. So inside a bucket, they want to use only one or two objects, or maybe some more few objects. Only that thing they want to encrypt it with customer supplied encryption key. So that is where, even though the bucket is Google managed encryption key set, when you are creating a file or uploading a file, you can supply your key and have that specific object as customer supplied encryption key. So that is the main reason why they have not turned it on in the uh, bucket level in the UI, basically, Anil. So now if I just click on this object, if you click on it to view, you see this output, folks. The target object is encrypted by customer supplied encryption. It is not going to show you. It's not going to show you. It's very, very, every time when you read and write, you have to supply the key. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. So it's going to show always the standard message. Whenever you click in the browser, because you have not even supplied your key. So how it can decrypt it? So then how can I do it? The only way which you can do is in the command line. The only way, command line or using REST API is what you can do basically. So if you were to view it, basically you have to again do something like this: gsutil -o, gsutil decryption key 1. What is the key? I'll just copy this key which I generated it. Then mention cat /demo. Now when I pass the encryption key, the decryption key, then it's going to work. It's going to show me the content. This file is shown by this thing. Now by any chance, if I change my key content standard, it should show the key is not valid. So I've just removed certain stuff here. One letter I have removed it. You're going to see looks like the decryption is not going to work. It's failed basically. Uh, and because we have used basically a symmetric key kind of a concept here, so you can use the same key to decrypt also. So let me just show this one. Instead of supplying as encryption key, I'll just mention it as, so decryption key, I'm going to mention it as encryption key. I can still see it. So I can use the same, I can use encryption key or decryption key, the number of key, this thing to decrypt and decrypt it. Basically, it's a symmetric key. So I'm able to, every time when I want to view an object, I have to pass this key and do it. So this may not be a good one for many organizations, because uh, anything which they upload, they want to use by default this customer supplied encryption key. So they don't want to explicitly send it. This one is for every object you explicitly send it. So by mistake, for example, if I create a new file, demo.txt, demo content. Now, if I forget, and if I just use gsutil cp demo, and if I copy it, sorry, cp demo.txt file. If I simply copy it, um, it's not going to have that setting which we have done. So that object, the demo.txt file which you uploaded, is going to be by default, because you have not supplied any key, it's going to use Google Manage Encryption key. Now, only if you explicitly pass, it's going to use it. Otherwise, it's going to use by default Google Manage Encryption key. So similarly, if you're copying this demo.txt file into the bucket which is customer supplied encryption key, it's going to inherit what is mentioned at the bucket level. Basically, if I copy it here one more time, so if I just copy this text file into here, it's going to have that as customer manage encryption key. So demo.txt, once it comes, you see it is customer supplied, but only for your customer managed. Only for your customer supplied key, either you have to explicitly send the key, or you can use a file called as .boo2 file. So you can use a file like this, where in the system where you're trying to run this gsutil, you can mention your encryption key and your decryption key. So that way, any copies which you're going to do in the future, it's going to always have customer supplied encryption key as an option. So you have to use this file called as .boo2 file. So to see that, because it's a hidden file, I'm going to use ls minus a. When I do ls minus a, I don't see any. Okay, I'm not in the right folder. I should be in the root folder, sorry, home directory. ls minus a, if I do I see it? I see it, but for the demonstration purpose, I'm going to remove it. Now, a small activity, folks, launch your Cloud Shell and do ls minus a, and let me know whether in your Cloud Shell, do you see a .boo2 file? So let me know whether you see it. Mostly you should not see it. This is a file which I expect you to see. Uh, Launch your Cloud Shell and let me know whether it is working. Launch your Cloud Shell and do ls minus a. What is the content in it? We'll just talk about that. But is this file there, first of all? There, not there? Okay, Cloud Shell takes longer time to launch. Anybody able to see it, or it's not there? Just type ls minus a to see all the hidden files. Okay, you see the problem which I face during the demonstration. No worries. So Let me know once it is launched and see whether that file exists or not. Usually it's not going to exist. So let me just wait here. Not able to see the file. Okay. Anybody else? Thanks, Mangesh. Anybody else able to see by any chance, folks? The standard answer would be you will not be able to see it. It's not there. Anil B also mentioned it's not there. Now, the way to generate that boot2 file, there are two different ways which you can do. So now if I put ls minus a, nothing is there. So what I'm going to use, there's a command called as gsutil config minus n. So if you run this, it's just going to generate a .boot2 file. You see this? This command will create a boot2 file at this location containing your credential based on the response from the following questions. So boot2 file has been created. If you need to use a proxy, all those things, there are lots of content in this file. So the file has been generated. Now if I put ls minus a, you should see a .boot2 file, which was not there previously. So this is the first way of generating it. If you want to see the content, do edit, and you should be able to see it in the editor which you get it in Cloud Shell. You can also use VI or Nano of your choice, editor of your choice. But if you are not so comfortable, you can use this editor option. It shows lots of contents, folks, and most of the stuffs are commented out. Most of the stuffs are commented out, which is an indication it's going to use some default values. So let me know once you generate your file, are you able to see it? So the first option is using gsutil uh, gsutil config minus n. That minus n is very important, folks. So this is going to generate your stuffs. Now in this, I would suggest, this is very important from the exam perspective. This is a very good configuration which has lots of stuffs. Whenever you have some time, explore it. I'm going to explore a couple of stuffs and show you here. The first part is uh, yesterday we were talking about some parallel composite uploads. Parallel composite uploads. So the threshold, so you can have this set here. You can have it set here. That is one option. Then one important thing which I wanted to show here is resumable uploads. This is a feature which Google provides you as a built-in feature. So if you have a file, right, for example, a 10 MB file, for example, and you want to upload it, or let's not take 10 MB, let's take something like 100 MB file. So 100 MB file is there, which is in your local laptop, and you want to upload that to Google Cloud Storage. So if you prefer to use your UI, create a bucket and just go click on something like this. Click on upload file and upload that file. What's going to happen is, uh, by if there's by any chance the internet chokes or connectivity is lost in your laptop, you have to again upload this file right from the beginning. That's one drawback if you do it in the UI. And the second drawback is if it's a larger file, when it becomes slightly more towards GBs, your browser will hang. Usually you cannot upload such huge file via browser. It's going to hang. So that's where people usually prefer to use gsutil. And in gsutil, when you use automatically gsutil copy command, it's going to turn on resumable uploads. Um, it's going to have that. What it's going to do basically is, and if the file size is minimum 8 MB, the resumable upload is automatically turned on, meaning the 100 MB example itself, you are uploading it maybe at the 50th MB when it was uploaded, you have a network issue in your laptop, so the gsutil will fail. Now again, when the internet connection is restored back, so it's not going to start from 0 MB, it's going to start from the 50th MB. It's more like your torrent. That resumable upload is going to be there. So, and the default value is 8 MB. So this is a very cool feature which is available with GSUtil and with REST APIs, not with your Google frontend, the console. So this is one important thing which you should be uh, using whenever you are uploading data from a unstable system. Prefer to unstable system which is not so stable with the network connectivity. Use GSUtil. That's one option which I wanted to highlight. And lots of stuffs are there. You can spend 1 hour easily on this. So the next one which I wanted to show you is the encryption part. So the encryption part. So by default, the field is not enabled. So uncheck this. So this is where you can mention your encryption key. And similarly, you can have n number of decryption keys. So I'm just going to have an encryption key only turned on. So I'll switch back to my terminal and use the same key, folks. Use the same key which I have it. Copy this, go back to my editor, paste this. Now I have the key there. What is going to happen? Okay, before let me just uncomment it. So the key is there, but I'm not going to use it. So let me just show you a small command what is going to happen here. So gsutil ls, without supplying the key nothing is going to happen, but I just wanted to show you this part. Cat So if I try to do without supplying any key, it's going to throw me an error, missing decryption key, because I have not even supplied it. So the way I supply it is using that top level parameter -o gsutil :encryption key. Then only I'm going to do it, or gsutil decryption key 1, something like that. I have to pass that, otherwise it's not going to work. Now I don't want to pass it every time. So if I don't want to pass it every time, the option which you should do is edit your boto file, .boto file, and mention your key details there. So that's only the stuff which I'm mentioning. Now if I go back and now run it, it's going to work. Not working. Let me see whether I did it properly. Saved it first of all. I have saved it. Spelling mistake. Okay, thank you. So encryption key. So this is the key. So now if I do it, it should be able to decrypt it and show my content. It shows the content is now decrypted. So now if you upload something new, it's going to by default use basically customer supplied encryption key is what is going to happen. So I have that file. Let me just go inside gsutil cp demo.txt file. I want to copy it into this. Now when I copy it, so if I just copy this, oh, sorry folks. Now without explicitly passing it, but I have my encryption key details in my .boto file, it's going to copy it. And if you just go and refresh this. Basically, where is that? If I go to my customer supplied encryption key thing, the demo.txt file is now also going to have customer supplied encryption key. So now you have to pass it, only then you can do it. Now by chance you lose the key, nothing can be done. You have to basically, I would say, if you cannot read it, better delete it. That's the only option I would say, because nobody can decrypt it, so better delete it. At least when you delete it, you can save some space, the cost there basically. So always keep your key in a secure vault in on-prem. So that's something which I wanted to share. Now let me just show you one last thing and then we'll move on. Here we just use the encryption. So if you use an asymmetric key, you can have multiple decryption keys. You can use that. So if you want, for your satisfaction, you can turn on this one. I don't know, there's some lag in my system. So if you want to mention, this has no impact, folks. If you ask me, it has no impact. So this multiple decryption keys are going to be really helpful when it is going to be an asymmetric key. So for encryption one, decryption one, if you want to do, then it's going to be helpful. If it's going to be a symmetric key which you're going to use, then you don't need to mention this part. So let me just comment this and show you how I can read it. Let me just show you. Said I have only the decryption key. So this file should be able to be read now. I can read that. I can also see the other content. It is also showing. Now if I comment even this one, the decryption keys, now if I comment, it's back to square one, where without any key I cannot read it. So now the previous command which worked, now it's not going to work. Back to square one, saying that you are missing the key there. So this is basically your three types of keys which I wanted to highlight and show you. Use this based on your requirement. And what I have personally seen is the .bootu stuff could be a question in the exam possibly. So I had also got in the recent recertification which I did something on .bootu file. I don't recollect the question very well, but I had seen something on .bootu. So basically, how do you encrypt it? If you put it on .bootu, whatever you do with gsutil copy command, it's going to always use customer supplied encryption key. Or if you want explicitly to be done, use that command which I showed, -o gsutil colon encryption key option there. Okay, so that's the option which I wanted to show you. Now a slide summary, and this few two slides which I've got is from the blogs, so the Google blogs. I just copied it. So three different types basically. uh, Encryption by default, you don't want to do anything, simply then it's going to be your Google managed encryption key option. If you were to generate your own key, keep the keys in Google Cloud, but you want to generate it, then use your KMS service and generate it and use it while you are handling your Google Cloud storage. And the last one is customer supplied one, where you're going to keep the key in your on-premise. This is very, very important, folks. So you generate the key and you keep it into uh, your GCP, then it's not going to serve any purpose. So whenever you go do with customer supplied encryption key, you have to make sure you keep it in uh, on premise or some other cloud, not in the same cloud. Okay, there's one question from Mangesh. .boto only comes into picture when we have customer manage encryption key. Okay, so .boto configuration can come in two options. So one option, if you're going to use customer supplied encryption key, the demo which we just did. Now, if you want to use .boto for even customer managed, you can use it. How do I do it? Simple. So if I just go here, open up the editor, instead of me supplying the key which I generated, what I am going to do is remove this. Now what I'll do is go to my key, copy the resource name. I can mention it like this. Let me first do this one. So just to show you the difference. So you can pass your key directly, which is your customer supplied key. The second option is basically you can also use this for your customer managed encryption key also. So I'm just showing you two different options. So this can be, if you just supply this kind of a key, it's going to be customer supplied. And if you send it in this format, it's going to be customer managed. So if I just copy one file using this command now what you will see is, if I just use this one, so this is uh, uh, encrypted using I can copy it to anything. I can copy it to any bucket, it's going to work. So for example, I'm going to purposely copy this to which bucket, which is Google managed one. I'm going to do this purposely. So I'm just going to copy into this bucket. So let me just copy this. And do it. Now what's going to happen to this file is it's copied demo.txt file. Now when I refresh it, it's not going to be showing as customer supplied. It's going to show as customer managed. You see this, folks? Customer managed. And the key also it's going to show me. So basically your .boto is going to come handy when you want to use customer managed and customer supplied. In both the cases, it's going to be helpful. Okay, so that's how it's going to be of use basically. So this is something which you need to keep in mind. When it is customer supplied, please keep the key somewhere else outside of GCP, not in GCP. And if you keep it in GCP, there's no harm, but the purpose is defeated. Basically, if somebody does an audit and they ask why the key is kept because it is customer supplied, you have to answer it. So that's one thing. And a small decision tree. Again, I got it from a blog, the official blog. If you just search for this, you should get this blog. So I thought it was a good one. Thought of putting it. So are you are you required to encrypt the data at rest? If your question is not sure, then you ask a follow-up question. Is there any financial, health, personal health, private individuals, military, or some confidential information? You ask a question. If you say yes, then Google Cloud always encrypts your data before it is returned to disk at no additional cost, which is your Google managed encryption key. That's one option. If you're also not sure, simply use it. Meaning, if you're not sure is the stuff which you are thinking of, you don't need to worry about it, folks. Google would have already encrypted it. So there are some best principles already taken into consideration without your awareness. So that's a good part, right? So by default. But if you have some clarity, yes, I need to encrypt the data, then the next question which you're going to ask, where do you keep the key? So if you say, no, I don't have a key itself, then use Google Manage Encryption Key option, where everything is going to be done by Google for you on behalf of you. Now, if you say, no, I want to have some little better key generation, control over the keys, all those things, but I want to keep the key in cloud itself, go with Customer Managed Encryption Key, leverage KMS. The last one is you say the key is going to be in on-prem, then you use your customer supplied encryption key. So a nice diagram which was really helpful. I thought of putting it here. So it was a copy paste of the content. Okay, so that's something on the data encryption part. The .boot is important, folks. Uh, I had got it, and one of the previous learners in batch 5 also informed that he had got this. So just emphasize something more on the boot to file. I would strongly suggest you to do a demo on boot to file. So the one which we did, you can also do the same thing there, and also explore something more, something like resumable upload, parallel composite upload configuration. Lots of such configurations are there. Spend at least 30 minutes there. That's going to be really helpful. Not only from the exam perspective, from your real implementation perspective, it's going to be helpful. So we'll stop it here. So we'll take a 10 minutes break. Once we come back from the break, we'll try to answer this option uh, and look for some solutions from this. Okay. So take a 10 minutes break and come back.
This conference will now be recorded.
So before the break, we saw how the data encryption part works, the three types of encryptions which is available, Google Managed Encryption Key, Customer Managed Encryption Key, and Customer Supplied Encryption Key is what we saw. Moving on to the next part of Google Cloud Storage concepts. Uh, so a lead to that concept is something like this. If you have a company policy and a regulation where your data, your Google Cloud data needs to be audited every once in a year by an external auditor, not by an internal auditor, external auditor. And the highlight of this external auditor is they don't have a Google account. So they don't have access to Gmail due to some reasons. They don't have a Google account itself. So the audit process is only going to be for maximum 5 days. So now you have to share some audit information, the log information, or whatever the required stuff they want. You have to share it with this external auditor. But because it's your own company's data, you cannot make it public. You cannot upload everything into a Google Cloud Storage bucket, make it as a public URL, share it with somebody, with an auditor. If somebody knows the URL, it's going to become problem, right? So it's going to become a problematic thing. So you are sharing stuffs publicly, so that has to be avoided. So you want to share, and it's only a roughly around 10 GB of data. So you should have an option for the auditor to download this file. And because we are looking into Google Cloud Storage, we'll try to keep it in Google in the class which we are discussing is Google Cloud Storage. So let's use Google Cloud Storage to be used to share the audit data, but it has to be in a secure way. First of all, if the auditor had a email ID, a Gmail ID, or something which is a G Suite or Google Workspace, we could have given him access to that specific object. We could have done that, but they don't have that. That is a problematic thing. So how do we address it? Any thoughts on this, folks? Just a brainstorming stuff. It does not need to be a right answer because we have not discussed that concept yet. So but just wanted to do a slight brainstorming here. So if you have such situations where you wanted to share something with a set of people, it could be a group also, uh, and they don't have Gmail or Google Workspace account, you still need to share some data. What would be the best way which you can think of? Password protected. So you'll put up, okay, So you upload every file into a Google Cloud storage bucket, zip it, put a password to the zip file. So share the link, and the link is going to be public or what? Is it going to be public, Anil Kumar? How will you share that? Because that person does not have a Gmail ID or a G Suite account. So if you password protect it also, what's going to happen? So you cannot share that stuff directly, right? Share the URL of the bucket. If you share the URL of the bucket, the problem is it's going to be, if it's somebody comes to know, they can easily get to know the stuff. Make it public. Option 1, make it public. Public URL, but password protected thing. So a good hacker can definitely get it, password protected file. So possible, but risk is going to be there. That's one option. The URL, if I directly share the URL, it has to be a public URL. Otherwise, the person will not be able to access it. So any other option which you can think of? Any other option which you can think of, which can come handy? And the problem is that person does not have the Gmail ID. If the person had it, right, we could have given him better, something like this. So no, I cannot give the permission. That is the problem. Create a user now. If I create a username, password, all those things, I will never create a username. I can create, if you see in GCP, right, you never create an ID, right, Anil Kumar. So we never create an ID. Now, if we were to do it, if we were to do it, we have to generate an email ID for him, share the email ID, the password, everything. It's going to be, and if he does not want to use it itself, it's going to become again a problematic stuff there. So for example, if that person is having a Gmail ID, right, I could have shared him easily like this. Go to that specific object, click on this three dots, edit permission. I could have given him an entry, add an entry, user, some username, demo.gcp 2018. I could have easily done this. Job would have become so easy, but this person does not have a Gmail ID. That is where all the problem is coming. So that's where all the problem is coming. So uh, if the Gmail ID is not there, giving a permission is not going to work itself. So one option which we can think of, which can solve this, is you can have n number of ways to do it. Uh, create a username, a temporary username, share it with him. After 5 days, delete the username, password. So it's going to have little this thing. So share the decryption key and rotate the key after the download. So you want to make it public, but keep it. Now we have to wait till how long he is going to download, all those things. Possible if those are all possible options, I would say. But one possible option which Google also provides as a built-in feature, these are all some workarounds which we are doing. So a built-in feature which Google provides is called as sign URL or signed URL. So what it does, it uses the same concept of a public, making the object public, and you have a URL. So it is going to be on the similar lines, but the only thing is that there's going to be an encryption done, and it's going to be a URL which has authentication data embedded. Little difficult to visualize. I'll show you that. So the URL is going to be very big one. So it's going to be really difficult for someone to basically make a copy of it. So if there is, for example, if I make this object, let me just go back to another one. This one. There's an object here. Now, if I make this edit permission, make it as public. They keep changing the UI. Yeah, public. Public all user read access. This is public. Now, what is the URL? the URL is going to be something like this. Now, anybody with a super fast eyes can definitely get it. So easy to remember also. So the most of the major portion, if you see, if I just go back, the major portion of the URL is standard. Remaining is your bucket name and your object name. If I can just remember this, anybody can just go and use it because it's a public URL. Now anybody can use it. Now what we are going to do is, after this, we are going to add some encrypted key content, so which nobody can use it. So that way the URL is going to be little massive or big in length, difficult for someone to memorize the URL. And by any chance, if the URL gets compromised, we have some control also. We have some mechanism to use as a mitigation plan. So that's what we are going to see with the help of signed URL, where the authentication is going to be embedded in the URL. So it's going to be a public URL only. Looks like a public URL. Only who has this URL can access it. But uh, making a note of this URL is going to be a little difficult because it's a very big URL. And you can keep this URL and you don't need to do any extra work. So if the audit process is for 5 days, what you can do is you can generate the URL for 5 days. On the 5th, after 5 days is over, the URL is going to automatically expire. A time bound URL. Basically, if you want a time bound URL, signed URL is a good choice. So how do you do it? With this command, gsutil sign URL, where you are going to send a private key. Basically a service account you are going to generate. That using the service account, you're going to generate a key. Use that key and create a encryption, encrypt the data and share it. So this is how you are going to use it. So this is going to have a time boundness part, and the maximum duration which you can store is for 7 days. So our requirement was only audit process only for 5 days. So we can generate easily for 5 days. If by any chance the audit process increases, we generate a new URL. So this is for downloading purpose. Similarly, if the auditor wants to upload his or her observation, you can use the same sign URL with a slightly different command, put command. By default, if you were to download it, it's going to be -m, and this -m is not multi-threading, folks. So only after gsutil -m it comes, it's multi-threading. But after some, if it's in middle of any command, it's not multi-threading, it could be something different. So in this case, the method -m stands for a method. The method is put. Put is for uploading your data. Get is for downloading your data. So you can also upload the data using sign URL itself, along with one more component called as signed policy document, because you should put some restriction, right? This auditor cannot upload some junk data. So what I will do is I'll say you can upload the data for the next 1 hour, and you cannot upload more than 1 GB file, and you cannot upload images. You have to only upload PDFs. All those things I put it as a policy and configure it so that he just goes and uploads it, basically. So to upload it, I'm going to use a combination of signed URL with a method called put plus signed policy document, where I put certain policy, what kind of data can be uploaded. For downloading it, just signed URL is good enough. So I'm not going to do a demo on signed policy document because it's going to involve some code which you have to provision in your Google Cloud storage. So let's not get into that part, but there's an option to do that. Basically, signed URL is what I'm going to show you, basically to download it. So let me just show you how it works. So for this, you need to have a private key, meaning you need to have a service account and with a specific role. Now, what is the role which you should give, folks, for the auditor? He just needs to download the object, a zip file or a text file, whatever it is. So what is that which you wanted to share? What role you should give to this uh, service account, which is going to use that service account and generate a key. And this is the same key which that auditor is going to use behind the scene. So to view the object, what role should you give in Google Cloud Storage? If you can be very specific, Anil B, it's going to be helpful. So specifically Google Cloud Storage access, we are looking for a predefined role. Yes, storage object viewer role is going to be a little better, as Aman mentioned. So viewer is a very broad access, folks. Viewer is primitive role. So let's be very specific. As Aman mentioned, it's going to be object viewer. Object viewer role, storage object viewer role is what you should give. There's no reader role which you get. Basically, there's no reader role as such. Viewer role is what you get actually. So first, let's generate a service account, then generate a key, then also have a role to it, all those things. And for a change, let's try to do everything in the command line. Let's do everything in the command line just for a change. So instead of juggling between UI and this thing, let's do everything in the command line. So for this, what I'll do is I'm just going to delete all these buckets. I don't want it, just to avoid any. And there's no point in putting for a public URL, an object which is public, turning on the sign URL. There's no point there. So don't try to do that. So always do it for a private object. Okay. So that's the most important thing. So let me just first create a bucket. gsutil mb minus c regional minus l Asia. So this is the one, and the bucket name is going to be hyphen sign URL. So the bucket should get generated, created. Now what I will do is have to store some content. Let me see whether I have something. I'm just going to copy where I am. So what I will do is there's a readme.txt file. So I'm just going to use this, folks. So what I'll do, gsutil cp readme dot this file, done, copied. The file is copied. Now if I just go to my bucket and see it, basically it's going to have the encryption is going to be okay. Why the encryption is customer sub managed? The reason is I did not change my Ubuntu configuration. So even if I forget it, if I have set it, it's going to always do that. So let me just remove this and make it back to normal. Commented it. Let me copy it one more time. If I copy it now, it's going to be Google Manage Encryption Key. If I just refresh it back, it's going to show us Google Manage Encryption Key. Good. So far, so good. Now assume this is just pretend as if this is the audit data. Okay. Usually it's going to be in zip file. So this is what is what. Now I wanted to share this URL to somebody outside of my organization, but it has to be in a secure manner, and I should be able to control it also. When this person should be able to see it, and after sometimes it should be auto expiring it, time bound access. How do I do it? Is with the help of that sign URL. For that, you need to have basically a key, which is going to be a service account key. So for that, let's first create a service account. So it's been a while we did not create service account. So gcloud IAM service account, name of your service account. So you want to create a service account. The name of the service account, I'll call it as sign URL. And one of the important thing is always keep a display name. That's going to be helpful. What is the purpose of this service account? Just mention it. Generate And I would strongly suggest to use basically a dedicated service account for using sign URLs to generate sign URLs. So I'm going to create a uh, service account created. Want to verify it? Gcloud IAM service accounts list me the stuffs. I should see one service account called this one. This is my ID. Good. I have my ID, but this is just an account, meaning just an identity. I have not given it any role. So let me just give it some role. Basically, the role which I am going to give is, as Aman mentioned, it's going to be object storage object viewer. So gcloud add IAM policy. Remember, so we had done this command projects add IAM policy. So for which project ID dev shell project ID and what is the member, and the member is of type what, service account. This is the one, and what is the role I wanted to give. So the role is going to be basically, this is an important part, roles storage dot object viewer. That's good enough for me. So this is the IAM policy binding which I'm doing. This command is very important. I had already highlighted it. Done. So the stuff is been done. If you wanted to verify whether all these things are reflecting in the UI, just go to your IAM page. IAM is never going to leave us. Everywhere it's going to follow us. So if I go to IAM, you see this, the one which you just created, and you have also assigned the role, object storage object viewer role. Good. Now I need to have a key. So usually for a service account, the way I generate the key is go to the service account, where's that? This one. Click on manage keys and add a new key. And the format is going to be two different formats. JSON is the recommended one. P12 is for backward compatibility. JavaScript object notation is going to be the recommended way. You click on this, it's going to download the key to your local system. Okay, to the local system. That's it. This is, once you have the key, you upload it to your Google Cloud storage and use that for your sign URL. This is one way. Now, if you say I don't want to do it in the UI, I want to do it in the command line, no problem. Let me delete this and generate it via command line itself. So doing it in command line is always a kick. So gcloud IAM service account. Just wanted to know the list of service account. What I will do is, if I see my local machine, so I will remove all these files. I don't have any files now. Now what I will do is, I'm just going to generate a JSON file, the key. So how do I do it? Gcloud IAM service account keys create a key and keep the key in my current working directory, in my home directory, and the name to that is going to be something like key batch6 dot json. Now for which service account you want to generate, you need to mention that with this flag. So this is where I need my service account's email ID. So what I'm doing, creating a key and keeping the key in my Cloud Shell only. The name of the file is going to be key-batch6.json. So generate that. key is generated. Now if I put ls, you see this, there's a file created. So there's a file created, and if you want to look at the content, it's going to be something like this, encrypted stuff, which is going to have all the details there. So now using this key, what we are going to do is generate a sign URL for specifically this object. How do we do it? With the help of the command which is there here, gsutil sign URL private key, the name of the bucket and the object. So let's just do that. So I will get my bucket name. So gsutil sign URL, hit a tab, it's going to autocomplete. Now I need to mention the duration. So duration, I will say I can do it for 7 days maximum, but nobody can test it till 7 days. So for the demonstration purpose, I'm going to make it as 120 seconds, 2 minutes only. So after 2 minutes, the URL should get basically expired automatically. That's the duration. The key name, this is the key, the private key. And what is the object? And the object name was this one. This is the stuff. Sign URL, the duration with your private key, and what's the complete object name, the URL. So hit enter. If things are all fine, it should generate me a sign URL. So this is the big URL which you get, folks. Now let me put it in the chat for you also to look into it. That's a big URL, and I can see the content there. I can see the content there. Let me know whether you are also able to see the content. And this content you can view till how long? Only for 2 minutes. After 2 minutes, the data is going to get expired, or the URL is going to get expired. Are you able to access it, folks? Yes, but it's going to be the only for 2 minutes only, and you can see it by yourself. I'm not going to do anything. So my mouse is just here, and you can see after 2 minutes it's going to expire. Now only we'll know the importance of time. The 2 minutes will take like ages. So once 2 minutes happens, elapses, you're going to see basically uh, this thing is expired is what it's going to show. Now this is the easy way, right? And it's so difficult for someone to make a note of this big URL, which has the authentication embedded in the URL itself. Basically, it's a bit vast. So 2 minutes should have expired. No, so 2 minutes is long. Okay, so let's wait for this. Now, by the time this comes up, or we see the message it is expired, let's think of one more thing. Now if the auditor has not finished it, every time he's downloading it, so if he says can you please extend it, definitely you can just go change the duration and regenerate a new URL, share it with him. But 2 minutes did not still over. Very strange. Okay, it's expired. The provided token has expired. The signature expired at so and so time. This is what you should also be now seeing. So I'm also seeing the same thing. You should also be able to see it because it was only 2 minutes was what we provided. Now when the auditor sees something like this, if there's a this thing request to generate for a longer time, basically change your duration. How long you want, you go ahead and do it. Maybe for something like let's do it for 5 minutes. You want to do it, you can do it for 5 minutes. M for minute, D for days. That's it. So if I want to do it for days only, let me do it 7 days or 5 days. 5 day, done. The URL is shared. It is coming. Now you should be able to see this also. Let me put it in the chat for you. This is the URL, folks. Now this is for valid for 5 days. So you can keep trusting it, it's going to work. Now, unfortunately, you come to know the maybe that auditor is using a Yahoo email ID, just for hypothetical scenarios only, using a non-Google email ID like Yahoo, and his account is compromised. So you would have dropped the email to this account only. So this is compromised. You feel maybe somebody else can also access this email. Now, how do you mitigate this? Now, if that person, the hacker, has already got access to the Yahoo account, he will get every information, whatever is mentioned. Maybe your email also is there, and where is showing the link, so he can also download it. Now, how do you mitigate this stuff? So at least going forward, if somebody forwards this link to somebody else, keeps on forwarding it, the data should not be leaked. What can I do, folks? I want this email, this URL to be blocked. How do I do it? Or if somebody tries to access it, should show something like page not found or error something. But I don't want this to be open. But if you see, it's basically a public URL which has a authentication embedded in it. So if it is compromised, how would I mitigate this part? Any thoughts, folks? Uh, yes, Saman, that's a good one. First of all, uh, you have to do two steps. Your answer is correct. Anybody else wants to do it? Remove the role. Role of what? The service account. If I just remove the role, nothing is going to happen. Let me just show you that. This one, right? So remove this. Done. So rotating the key, duration, the key, the URL is already generated. The URL is already generated. You can see I have pasted you two different URLs. Both the times the URL is going to be a token expired, is what you are saying. Let me just refresh it. So nothing is going to happen. You can wait for a longer time. You will see, if you just remove the role, nothing is going to happen, because using the key, I have already generated it. I have shared it. Now rotate the key. How do I rotate the key here? So if I go to my service account, this is the, if I just click on the service account, click on keys, there's no option for me to rotate anything. So there's no inbuilt feature like key rotation, like what you get in KMS. That's only for cryptographic keys. So for your service account keys, you will not have that rotation. One option which I can do basically is generate a new key. First of all, I have to mitigate the risk. Generating the new key is later. First of all, what I will do is I'll just go and delete this key. The moment I delete this key, the person will not be able to access it. So deleting the role is not going to be helpful, but deleting the key is going to be helpful. So if I just refresh this, see whether it's still working. Oh, role defined. Okay. Mangesh option also was good. I was never trying this. I was never aware of this option. So what Mangesh mentioned was delete your role itself. So the role you deleted it. Now you're getting this option. So this is one option, a possible option. Another option which I usually do is basically instead of removing the role, right? I'll just add back the role. Let me add back the role. It should again work. So this should again start working. It's showing this service account does not have storage access. Now if I add back the role, it's going to again come back. So let me just copy this URL, the email ID, sorry. Add object like, sorry, add IAM policy binding. So I have added it. Now I have added it back. Now if I go and refresh it, I should be able to see it. It works. So that is one option, possible option. What I usually do is do something like this. Go delete the key, because the role, if I delete it, what's going to happen is, if this is going to be used by some other URL, even that is going to impact. So what I do usually is basically go to the key which is currently been there, delete it first of all, gone. Now if I go and refresh it, it's going to show the signature we calculated does not match the signature you provided. Check your secret key and the signing method. So I get this right away. It's going to be blocked basically. But if there's any, say for example, now what you do is generate a new key and generate a new URL and share it with them. So this is another option which you can use. So this is going to be like a manual rotation. You have to delete the older key, create a new key, and then do it basically. So let me just do one more time. Generate a new key. Uh, G Cloud. Yeah, I'll just call this as new. A new key is generated. Now I use service account, the sign URL. Now generate with this new one for 5 days. It's going to work. The previous one is not going to work. Now I'm using the same service account, but I just rotated, or you can call it as rotation, but it's going to be a manual rotation. Basically, there's no option for you to rotate it automatically. So this is one option which you can think of, folks. The ultimate option, if you feel it's going to create problems, just delete your service account. As Mangesh mentioned, either remove the role or delete your service account itself. That's going to be the ultimate option which you can try. But if you want to have a little glitch, just deleting the service account key and recreating a new key and generating a new URL. And the URL, you cannot uh, see how many URLs you have generated, folks. Every time you generate the URL, it's going to be a new one. The randomness is going to be there. So you cannot also see how many URLs you have generated it. You cannot set the duration to 0. If you set the duration as 0, it's going to be a new URL basically. So one possible way is handling with your service account key. That's going to be one possible way, and you can have multiple options like how you people mentioned. Those are also possible options. But whenever you think of an option, look at minimum disruption basically. So the easiest one is I just disable the service account itself. Everything is going to fix it. But if some other uh, URL you have generated it and you want to share, it's shared, that is not compromised, they will also get impacted. So that's where what you should do always is, whenever you are generating a URL for a specific object, have a specific service key. Anyway, we can have up to 10 keys for a service account. So 10 different auditors, 10 different keys. Only what has been compromised, just delete that key and it's going to have no impact to other auditors. Some organizations have seen they do audit with 2 different people to get 2 different opinions. So in that case, if you have used 2 keys, only delete the key which was compromised. So that way you will have no impact to the other auditor. All right, folks, hope that makes sense how sign URL works. Once he downloads, views, does his observation, and you want to upload it, he's going to use -m. The method is put, and you upload it with the help of signed policy document. Is there a
So, but
question?
Mahesh, the problem is not solved, right? But anyway, my account is like compromised. Even if you
Hmm.
change the URL and send it, but still the account is compromised, right? Is there any other
No,
way
I
we
have to
can
send
share
it to
the?
I have to send to a different email ID. That's it.
Oh, okay.
So
Oh, okay.
that's
Got
it.
you. Got
Right?
you.
Simple.
Thank you.
Yeah. So that's on sign URL, folks. I had got a question basically on this put command. So how do you upload it? So you want to upload this thing. So basically the whole thing is it's time bound. So whenever it is time bound, you don't need to much worry about it. So usually people will forget, right? If we share with some external user, we have to revoke the access. Here there's no option, there's no need for you to revoke any access. The time boundness comes into picture very handy. So maximum 7 days. If the auditor is very smart, instead of 5 days, he finishes it in 2 days. No problem. Get all the details, delete the key. So he will not again see the content. So you can do all those kind of smartness with the help of playing around with the key. The whole concept was to play around with a key. And we had not used the service account key very heavily in the past demos. So I thought, let me use that as a opportunity to and show you how you can use your private key which you generate for your service account. Okay, so that's the last part of the demo in our Google Cloud Storage module. The key takeaway which you should take from this module is Google Cloud Storage is going to act as a staging environment for many of your stuffs. So already we saw App Engine. So going from now, we are going to see some few other stuffs like some database, some ETL tools, all those things. Whenever you want to do any kind of data processing or some application development or some startups, whatever it is, you people basically keep the data in Google Cloud Storage. And if there's any migration requirement also, and you don't know where to start, simple. Bring the data somehow using GS util, transfer appliance, whatever the way it is, bring the data to Google Cloud Storage. Once it is in Google Cloud Storage, right, there are lots of options for you to connect it with some other product in GCP. For example, you want to connect it with a virtual machine, you can do it. You want to connect it with the Kubernetes cluster, you can connect it. Cloud functions, you can do it. So you have that option basically. So always think as your best bet for any migration. I would say the simplest way. You can do complex migration with lots of third-party tools or products like Velostrata or Migrate for compute, all those things. The simplest way of migration is use Google Cloud Storage. We will do such kind of migration as a demonstration in the next few minutes. There you will really appreciate the value of Google Cloud Storage. Okay, that's a key takeaway which you need to keep, folks. So it can come very handy, and you can also have a website running if you want. A website, a static website hosted in Google Cloud Storage. You can also do that. I have a video in my channel also. If you are interested, you can look into it. So those are good options which you can leverage with Google Cloud Storage. I usually use this as my staging environment for many things. So with that, I have two options for you folks. Google Cloud Storage itself was a bigger topic. We looked into it as much as possible with all the details, demos, all those things. Now we can go to the next module, which is basically structured database, all those things, or we can jump into the questions, few questions which I have. So your take based on the majority, I'm going to take it. Quiz or continue with what we want to do. So next is Google Cloud Storage. Quiz is two options is what I see from Anil Kumar and Anil B. Continue is with Deepak. Okay. Two quiz, one this thing. Quiz for revisit. Okay. Three quiz, four quiz. I don't know if you are quite okay. Mostly quiz is what I get. So let's jump into the quiz, folks. So I have to, yes, what I have to do is I have to go fast. So let me just go back to the quiz part. One minute. There's a better way I can do it. Okay, we came to the quiz, and please everybody change your mode to presenter or to Mahesh so that your answers comes only to me, not to the everyone part. Okay, the first part, some of the questions related to Google Cloud Storage. Okay, so the first question, your company wants to reduce the cost on infrequently accessed data by moving it to Google Cloud. The data will be stored approximately, the data will be accessed approximately once a month to refresh the historical data. Looks like some kind of a report. So once in a month, it's going to be refreshed. In addition, the data older than 5 years is no longer needed. How should you manage the data? So basically, this is the question, folks. Let me know what's the answer, and your time starts now. 2 minutes. I got a response from Vivek already, so that's correct answer. Anil B got it. Deepak got it. Aman got it. Good. Others? Anil Kumar got it. Shripal got it. Mangesh got it. One more minute, folks. Most of you got it. So I guess everybody, let me see the list. I guess most of you got it already. So why don't we look into the explanation? So the answer is C, as most of you mentioned. But the key part is we need to also look into the other options, why it was not a good option. Let's look into that first of all. In Google Cloud Storage, go with Google Cloud Storage. Now you see a good value. So data has to be infrequently accessed, data needs to be moved. So they did not think of anything else, just thought of Google Cloud Storage. That's a good option. Store it in multi-regional bucket. Set an object lifecycle policy to delete the data after 5 years. Now, if I keep it in multi-regional bucket, what's going to happen is, because the data is not very frequently accessed, it's going to be accessed only once in a month. So if I put it in multi-regional one, it's going to be a costly solution, an expensive solution. So you may ask, nowhere we have mentioned expensive, or it has to be cheaper. If you don't, if there's a question does not mention they want a cheaper solution or expensive solution, always assume it to be cheaper. Nobody expects in the world an expensive solution. In some cases, I have myself seen questions where the customer, in the question, the exam, they mention cost is not a concern, we want performance, something like that. If they mention that, then you can have a better solution. But since they have not mentioned anything here, we'll assume it has to be a cost effective solution. So option A is going to be ruled out because of multi-regional, because the storage cost is going to be high. Option B, store it in multi-regional, again the same thing. That is one thing which I'm going to ignore. And this, at least the second part was okay in option A. Lifecycle policy lifecycle management policy after 5 years deleted. That's what they mentioned. That's going to be good. But in option B, making it as a cold line is going to be making it more expensive. So option B is the most expensive option, which I would say. The reason is you keep it in multi-regional one. After 5 years, you keep it in cold line. So the cost is going to always incur. So very expensive one, option B. Option C, store the data, prefer to use Google Cloud Storage, stored in nearline bucket. Set the object lifecycle management policy to delete the data older than 5 years. Now, nearline is going to be once in a month. If you're going to use it once, access it once in a month, it's going to be little effective. Yes, because once you access it, there's going to be a retrieval cost also. But you are going to access only once in a month. It's okay. And for the remaining thing, the storage cost is going to be an impact. Storage cost for a near line is going to be comparatively lesser to a multi-regional one. So C makes more sense. And if you look into D, it is exactly like your option C, but they go with cold line. After 5 years, they keep it in cold line because they very clearly mentioned they don't need it, no longer need it. So you don't need to do anything with keeping it in cold line. So if they say you have to keep it for some compliance purpose, then option D is a good choice. But they very clearly mention no longer needed. So that English words are going to be really helpful there. So option C is a good choice. Most of you gave it correctly. Good. Not most, I guess everybody gave it correctly. Moving on to the next question, folks. Your company collects and stores security camera footage in Google Cloud storage. Within the first 30 days, it's into CCTV stuff, folks. Within the first 30 days, footage is processed regularly. Every day they are going to access it with what, for what purpose? Threat detection, object detection, trend analysis, what's happening in the video, look for some suspicious behavior, all those things. Maybe the analyst first day is going to download this and look for any threat analysis. Second day, the person is going to look for any suspicious behavior. So it's going to take time. Maybe they may use some manual way of looking into it, or may have some software which can do one at a time. So, but for the first 30 days, they are going to use it very extensively, is what they are process very regularly, is what they mention. You want to minimize the cost of storing all the data. Explicitly mentioned, you want to minimize the cost of storing all the data. How should you store these videos which came from those CCTV footage stuff? So let me know the answer. Anil B got it already. Vivek got it. Anil Kumar got it. One wrong answer. And that 30 days is just to trap you, folks. To trap you, don't get into the trap. No, two wrong answers. Kumar got it correctly. First 30 days, every day they're going to access it regularly. Footage is processed regularly, meaning you have to download it and do it regularly. So 30 days you're going to very extensively use it. Aman got it correctly. Three wrong answers so far. Mangesh got it correctly. Deepak got it correctly. Last 30 seconds, folks. Time up. Let's look into the explanation first of all. Use Google Cloud regional storage for 30 days. Then move them to cold line storage. This part, the footage is processed regularly, meaning there's going to be n number of data retrieval is what it indicates basically throughout 30 days. So just don't do that mind map 30 days is equal to nearline. No, the context here is 30 days. For the first 30 days, they're going to very extensively use this video. Every time multiple people are going to download it, there could be one analyst who looks for only threat analysis, one analyst who's going to look into for some suspicious behavior. So multiple people are going to access this for the first 30 days by for multiple analysis purpose. So if I put it as a regional storage bucket data, it's basically data processing. So we have also done that. Whenever it is data processing, always prefer a regional bucket is what we had preferred. That is what they are also doing it. So and regional one has data retrieval cost as free. So 30 days, if I'm accessing it multiple times, I'll not be charged for my retrieval itself. That's a beauty. Plus, after 30 days, it is saying move it to cold line storage. Why don't we delete it? So because this is videos, right? Usually you would have seen, so the recordings which people do, the CCTV footage, people don't delete it immediately. There's going to be some kind of a compliance layer, at least like 90 days they keep it. Some organizations keep it for 6 months. So because this could be a footage, maybe some police investigation may come and they may say, we wanted to see the footage of during February. We want to do retrospectively, they want to go and look into it. So keeping the footage is going to be important. So if I keep it in cold line, definitely it's going to reduce my cost. Maybe if there's a case, police case or anything, they are going to access it. Otherwise, basically we just need to just leave it. So our storage cost is going to be very cheap. Our retrieval cost is going to be there whenever there's any case. So option A looks like a good choice. So let's just keep it and see whether we can have something better than this. Google Clouds, use Google Cloud nearline storage for the first 30 days. If I keep this as the storage class, every time when I retrieve, there's a retrieval cost. So it's going to be really expensive here. So I'm going to retrieve it multiple times throughout 30 days. It's going to have incurred cost for every time. So it's an expensive solution, and they very clearly mentioned they want to minimize the cost. So option B gets ruled out. The 30 days nearline map should not work here because 30 days they are going to extensively use it, download it. So use regional storage for the first 30 days and move to nearline. Now A is also a good choice. B is also C is also a good choice. So if I take my highlighter, so this is also good. This is also good. Nearline, long-term storage. There's a clash. We'll come to that clash and verify what's going to be better. So here it's cold line. Here is nearline. So which going to be the cheapest one if when it comes to your cost wise? Cold line is going to be cheaper or near line is going to be cheaper, the storage wise, storage cost wise. So which is the one which is going to be cheaper, folks? Yes, Deepak. So it's going to be a cold line which is going to be cheaper. So that's your tiebreaker. So C gets ruled out. C gets ruled out. So A still remains as the possible option. Moving on to option D, an interesting one. Use regional storage bucket storage for 30 days and then move to persistent disk. Where did we hear persistent disk, folks? Uh, how can we access persistent disk? This is for our VMs, right? GCE. So only if you have a virtual machine, you can access your block storage, BLOCK, only with your VMs. So if you ask me, this is going to be the most expensive solution which you can have. Persistent disk is going to become expensive. And what is the problem if you use persistent disk? You have to always attach a VM to access your data. That's one problem. So the second problem is if you use persistent disk, the maximum capacity of the persistent disk is what? 64 terabytes. There's a volume constraint there. So, and you look at the footage continuously 24/7, the CCTV camera is running. So it's going to generate a huge amount of data. So putting a video content into a persistent disk is a very bad idea. So how to put it in a Google Cloud storage bucket, a blob storage. That's going to be the best way is what I would say. So D is also not a good choice. So A remains as a possible good choice, which is going to be definitely minimizing the cost. So most of you mentioned, couple of you got little confused with the near line. So no problem, make mistakes here. So option A is the good choice. Now, if I give you one more option as a cloud architect, can you still reduce it, folks? Can you still make it the best solution? To make it the best solution, what will you do? A is already a good one, but I want a best solution. What can you do for the same requirement? Yes, Sripal, that is awesome. Uh, Yes, Deepak, that's good. Yes. So Kumar, Ankit, Mangesh got it correctly. So basically what I would do is very simple. Instead of moving it to cold line, I'll move it to archive, folks. Simple. I'll make it as archive storage class. That's it. So I don't need to do. So that's going to be the best way. Make it as archive. Moving on to the next question, folks. Your application has a large international audience and runs serverless virtual machines within a managed instance group. Sorry, it runs stateless virtual machine within a MIG. One feature of the application lets user upload files and share them with another users. Some file sharing option. Uh, Files must be available only for 30 days. After that, they are removed from the system entirely. Which storage option should you use? Let me know the option. So just because we are looking at Google Cloud Storage, just don't mention it is Google Cloud Storage, folks. Just think about it and let me know. Some file sharing stuffs, basically. Most of you have given it as B. I agree. It's going to be B is going to be a good choice. Uh, uh, but if I were to give you one more option, can you enhance this question? Enhance this. Option D is going to be not working. So let me just give. So first of all, let me disclose the answer first of all. Have a life cycle. Yes, that life cycle policy is going to be a good one, Vivek, after you make it enhanced. So basically, this is a file sharing system where you upload some photos you want to share with somebody. So, and only for 30 days, you keep it in multi-regional. Now, why it is multi-regional, folks? Any thoughts, first of all? Why it is multi-regional? International audience. That's good. Anil B and Vivek, Deepak, Mangesh. So it's an international audience. So you want to have latency, lowest latency, all those things. So that's the reason you're going to do it with multi-regional. And after 30 days, they say it needs to be completely removed from the system. So that's where, as one of you mentioned, uh, an object lifecycle policy is going to be a good one, where you mention you delete it, completely remove it. The rule is delete it. So that's going to be an extension, I would say, which is going to fulfill this requirement much better. The next question, this is my favorite question. Uh, your infrastructure includes 200 terabyte enterprise file servers. You need to perform a one-way, one-time migration of this data to Google Cloud securely. Only users in Germany will access this data. You want to create the most cost-effective solution. What should you do? Uh, 200 terabytes. So it's totally 200 terabytes of information from an enterprise file server. So that hints me it is something coming from on-prem, if I'm not wrong. Think about it and let me know the answer. So your time starts now. Vivek got it. Couple of wrong answers. Anil B got it correctly. Couple of wrong answers. Ankit got it correctly. One more wrong answer. Mangesh got it correctly. Anil Kumar got it correctly. Last 30 seconds, folks. Deepak got it correctly. Kumar got it correctly. All right, time up. So let's look into the explanation. So the first of all, when you see something like this, right, something should be already fixed in the mind itself. So you don't need to look into the options itself. So I usually do something like that. It comes easily. They mention basically enterprise file server. So it's an indication that it is something from on-prem, and you want to do one way, one time migration. So basically transfer appliance, basically transfer appliance. The one time, one way is usually transfer appliance. That way it is coming from on-prem. So I have all the stuffs. Yes, Anil, B. Compliance is one time more than 20 terabytes. That's something is what you can use as a rule. Uh, uh, to this data to Google Cloud securely. Users in Germany will have access to this. Only a specific set of people should be able to access it, a country. So Germany, if you see this Frankfurt as a region in GCP, so you can have a regional bucket for that to do it. So if I use this way, it's going to be definitely cost effective, basically, because I'm going to use regional. Only certain people, only in that region they are going to use it. So regional storage class are going to be cost effective compared to multi-regional. And basically it's a transfer appliance requirement. So if I know all these things, I don't need to look into any other option. Basically I directly go and look for something which is having transfer appliance. So use transfer appliance to transfer offsite backup file to Google Cloud regional one, because it is only access to Germany as a final destination. That's a good option. A looks like a good choice. Use transfer appliance, same thing, but instead of a regional one, they are going with multi-regional. If I go with multi-regional, it's going to be expensive, and is also not going to fulfill the requirement, because it's going to be available to, it's going to be replicated across multiple regions. So they want only in Germany. So B gets ruled out. C and D, if you see, I'm not going to even look into it because it is transfer service. So transfer service for cloud, or if you think, okay, how about the transfer service for on-prem, which we have? If you think of it, uh, you can think of that also as an option. But yesterday I hinted you, if they don't mention anything like transfer service. Now if you see, if you ask me, there's no service in GCP, at least as of today. If I take today, there's no product like transfer service. There is two different service called as transfer service for cloud, transfer service for on-prem. So I can use that as my defending point, saying that option C and D does not even exist. I don't have a product like that, because they have not given a complete name. So if they had given transfer storage transfer service for on-prem, then I could have considered that. Then I could have considered it. And if you ask me, by any chance, if option C was storage transfer service for on-prem, I would have definitely gone with option C, because cost-wise, it's going to be much easier, cheaper, I would say. But they have not mentioned that. That's the reason option C I'm not going with. Some of you mentioned option C, but such a product does not exist, because now the product names are changed. And to be very frank, this question is an old question. So that's the reason they had mentioned transfer service. Okay, just keep that in mind. So option A is a good choice here. Moving on to the next question. Your infrastructure runs in another cloud, for example, AWS, and includes a set of multi terabyte enterprise databases, something like Oracle. Uh, and that are backed up nightly both on-premise and also on that cloud. So it's already, there are two backups, one in AWS, one in on-prem. You need to create a redundant backup to Google Cloud. So the third backup in Google Cloud Storage. And this is how people usually come to Google Cloud, folks. So just use it for some backup purpose. Later they see the cost is little cheaper. They slowly move some migrate. So this is like your door opening kind of requirements. So only keep backup data. So you are responsible for performing a scheduled monthly disaster drills. You want to create a cost-effective solution. Lots of stuffs there. So backup needs to be there, and the backup should also be sanity checked every month for whether the backup is working well or not. So, but you want to do everything in a cost-effective manner. What would you propose? So, little tricky question. So, even though it was tricky, Vivek got it correctly. Good. One right answer from Vivek, one wrong answer. Anil B got it correctly. Two right answers so far. Two wrong answers, two right answers. Three wrong answers, four wrong answers, five wrong answers. Kumar got it correctly now. Looks like a tricky one, folks. Many wrong answers. That's good. Make mistakes here in the class. Only three right answers so far. Vivek, Anil B, Kumar. No. Ankit got it. You have 40 seconds more. 50 seconds more, sorry. No. More wrong answers came for this question only. So definitely needs an explanation. So we'll do it in next 15 seconds. Only 4 people got it correctly. All right, folks, time up. Let's look into the explanation. The first option, first, whenever you look into this kind of a question, this is from another cloud to GCP, right? So if it's from another cloud to GCP, transfer appliance will not even work, folks. We have seen it yesterday itself. We cannot use transfer appliance from another cloud to GCP. So you cannot, they will not even allow the truck uh, to enter other clouds data center. They're going to block it at the gate itself. So it's not going to work. Technically, it may work, but it's not going to work in reality. So whenever you see transfer appliance, I'm not going to even look into that option to save some time. Transfer appliance does not work from other cloud to GCP. So A and B totally ruled out basically. So I'm just only left with only two options, C and D. That basically talks about transfer service. Now, if I take a step and see, such a product does not even exist if I see this question with the latest information. Uh, but if I do a small assumption, they are talking about transfer service for cloud. If I make that assumption, then I can look into option C to transfer offline offsite backup to Google Cloud storage nearline bucket as a final destination. Option D, exactly same, and cold line as a final destination. So both are going to use transfer service for cloud, which can do from other cloud to GCP. And basically there are two inbuilt capability from AWS to GCP. Azure to GCP is already there. So definitely transfer service is going to be a good choice. So that's going to basically help back up the stuffs from that cloud to GCP. Now, whether to go with nearline or cold line is going to be decided by how frequently you are doing this drill. Once in a month, you are going to access the data to check whether the backup data is really worth while using or it is corrupted. So I'm going to do the drill every month, right? So only once in a month only I'm going to access that backup file so that I can just restore it into the database and see whether the database is working fine or not. So option C looks like a good choice compared to option D. And option D is going to be expensive solution. Because the retrieval cost is high there. So cold line, if they had told we are going to drill every quarter, every 90 days, once in a quarter you are going to test it out, then option D would have been a better choice. But since the drill is every month, option C is a good choice. And A and B, I don't even need to look into it because that is not going to support us because it's from another cloud to GCP. And if you may think, maybe Mahesh, from on-prem, they are uploading it to Google Cloud Storage. Okay, if it's on-prem to Google Cloud Storage, every day will you order a transfer appliance? That's not going to work. So the backup is coming from other cloud to GCP, basically. So that's the reason why option C is a better choice compared to anything else. So many of you got it wrongly. So let me know whether the explanation is making it clear, folks. Why the options which you mentioned were wrong. Many, actually, lot of you got it wrongly. Only 4 of you got it correctly. Good. So if the explanation is clear, good. Awesome. So I'm just going to skip this. This is not required for now. Yeah, that's it, folks. Those were the questions. So there are other questions which we will discuss later when we come back. So now time back to some migration this thing. So what we'll do is we'll just take a break, a 10 minutes break. Once we come back, we will look into something called as some database options which Google provides. So let's take a 10 minutes break and come back and then also answer this option once we come back from the break. So take a break and come back, folks.
This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so before we go to the next module, which is on databases, all those options which Google provides, a small migration stuffs. Not a great migration tip, but what we have learned so far. So you can give some better solutions also, but based on what we have so far covered, if you were to propose a solution for a two-tier architecture, which is currently running in on-prem. So the front end is written in Node.js, Python, Java, any language of your choice, basically a web application. It has a backend, which is a MySQL database, very specifically MySQL database. That's where it is two-tier architecture. Now, if you were to move this application or migrate this application to GCP, what will you propose, folks? So if you are already working on some advanced migration, it may look like a piece of cake for you. You can propose your solution. But if you have not worked on any migration, based on the knowledge which we have gained so far, we have finished introduction, IAM, various compute options, one storage option which we have finished. Based on that, what would you propose? Okay. Anil B has a good option. Vivek has a good option. Then Anil B, Mangesh, partial answer, Mangesh. You can mention front end, back end. How do you want to do it? And you can also keep your solution as simple as possible. Also, you don't want to make it too much complicated. Also, your choice. I understood that, Anil B. So I understood your stuffs. Migrate. Okay. Mangesh. Pin. No. Transfer appliance will never come into picture here. Mm, Kumar has a point for the front end. Good. So there are multiple ways to handle it. So thanks for putting all those things. The simplest option. So front end. Now let's try to break it into front end and back end. No, transfer service will never even work here. Transfer service will never work because it's from on-prem to GCP. So either you have to use transfer appliance if you were to migrate your data, and assume if you were to use transfer appliance, you should first ask what is the volume, then only propose that. So I have not mentioned the volume also. So transfer appliance or transfer service, nothing is going to be used. Transfer appliance possible, but based on the volume, based on the location. So one option for the front end, right, because it is a web application, I can go with compute engine, or maybe to start with the most advanced options, I can containerize it. I don't know whether it is containerized. If it's not containerized, I can containerize it, run it in Kubernetes engine, or run it in Cloud Run, or do slight modification, add some app.yaml file kind of a stuff and make it run in App Engine. Possible. So these are some modifications which I have to do. But if I were to do a lift and shift easy stuff, my best bet is always on a virtual machine. Just install whatever is required into this virtual machine, run this app. That's the first option. Database. So database, it's a MySQL database. I can create one more virtual machine. Simple, right? So in very simple way, I could have done this option. So GCE for your front end and GCE again for your back end. One product fulfilling everything. So here I am going to provision my MySQL instance. Here I'll install basically it's not a real migration, but what I do is I recreate the entire environment. So recreate the entire environment, install node or whatever it is, Python, get the code, deploy it. Similarly, MySQL, I usually get a dump and I should be able to do it. So for DB, yeah, you can also go with marketplace option. That's also a good option, Aman. So what we have learned, at least based on that, marketplace is also a good choice. That was a good one. Marketplace is another option which you can leverage. So possibly this is one of the possible solution which I have tried to put. All the options which you mentioned works basically for the front end. App Engine standard, Cloud Run, GKE or GCE, all options are going to one. I have avoided flexible because it's going to take longer time for me to do all those things. So I wanted a little quicker. So options are going to be good. So for the back end, right, assuming the volume is going to be 5 terabytes, which is less than 20 terabytes for a prerequisite for your uh, transfer appliance. So what I'm going to use is very simple. I'm going to use a utility from MySQL called as MySQL dump, which is going to dump your schema and your data. People from non-database background, don't worry. This is nothing but an utility which is going to export your data, database content into a .SQL format or or any specific format. If it's Microsoft SQL Server, it's going to be .bak file format. So it's going to take a backup of your data, get a complete dump. So get a dump. Once you have the dump in your on-prem, use your data transfer off. So you can transfer your data, the dump, using your GS util. Simple. I don't need to use transfer appliance because the volume is less, and I cannot use storage transfer service also because it's from on-prem. So dump that into my favorite product, Google Cloud Storage, as a staging environment. So stage it first. Once you provision a virtual machine on your compute engine, or as Aman mentioned, we can use marketplace, have it, then import the data into your MySQL. Then you have your database running, you have your front end running, connect it, and it's going to work. So this is one option which you can use. So, but the drawback with this option which we are going to use is the database is something which you have installed it on an infrastructure as a service. Most of you gave some better options for uh, the front end, App Engine, Kubernetes engine. Those are going to be little better because those are container as a service or platform as a service. But for database, only a couple of you mentioned one product which we are not seen still. Yes, but if you do it on a virtual machine, it's an infrastructure as a service. You have to patch the database, patch the operating system, take backup of your database regularly, do data synchronization. All those things are going to be there. So taking backup, scaling it, seeing whether the specific machine type is fulfilling the requirement, lots of overhead is going to be there as a DBA. So if you don't want to do all those things in GCP, you can go with something called as a managed service. A managed service where Google is going to provide you a managed MySQL instance. So if it's provided by Google, it's going to be easier for us to use it. So that's where Vivek and Anil B were mentioning Cloud SQL instance is going to be a good choice. So that is the thing. So this was just a lead to the next module, which is Cloud SQL instance, basically a managed MySQL, Postgres, and Microsoft SQL Server product. So these are managed, meaning you just go click on a button, it's going to just create it for you, and you don't need to know any internal workings of it. So load the data and start querying it. Very, very simple. They will take care of patching, upgrading, all those things by themselves, by Google, by the cloud provider. So you have an equivalent of this in other cloud also, called as, in AWS it is called as RDS, relational database service. In Azure it is called as SQL database, basically. And to be very frank, right, if I do a one-on-one comparison with Azure, GCP, AWS, and GCP specifically for database, I would say GCP is lagging. To be very frank and blunt, GCP is lagging when you compare it with other cloud providers. The reason is it only provides 3 database, folks: MySQL, Postgres, and Microsoft SQL Server, out of which 2 are open source. One is an enterprise product from Microsoft. Whenever we say database, what is the first database which most of our this thing which comes to us? Or what's the first database which comes to our mind, folks? When I say database, Oracle. Oracle is the one which comes to your mind. That's enterprise. So but that is missing in GCP. So IBM DB2, if you ask, it is missing. So lots of database support is missing here. So I would say whenever you are positioning yourself as a cloud architect for a project where a database is going to be used and some differentiation you want to show, okay, there's a comparison between 2 different clouds, uh, don't use database as a criteria to differentiate it. Look for some other stuffs, basically, because it's not that advanced. I would say the offerings is not that there. Only three. The most mature one I would say is going to be AWS or Azure. Both of them almost supports almost all the stuffs. Oracle is there, managed Oracle stuff is provided in Azure and GCP, but in in Azure and AWS. In GCP it is not supported. We will look at a later point of time, maybe next week, how, if it's Oracle, how can we do some migration from Oracle to GCP. That also we'll look into it. But Oracle is not there, and Oracle and GCP has a distance there. So always some distance is there. So Google always provides you a workaround solution, not a straightforward solution when it comes to Oracle. There are possible options, 1 or 2 options, but these are all workaround, not like a straightforward option. Now, if you have an Oracle database in on-prem, I want to get this up and running in easy steps, I can get it running in AWS and Azure, but not in GCP. Just keep that in mind. It's not one of the greatest offerings which you get, at least for this one. So what is Cloud SQL? Basically, the features which it basically, it's a managed database, specifically MySQL, Postgres, and Microsoft SQL Server. And specifically, the versions are very, very important, folks. You have to be aware of the versions, at least from the exam perspective. And which version? Basically, MySQL is going to be an important one. MySQL is going to be an important version which you need to remember. If you just search in net, the latest version of MySQL is 8.0. Latest version of Postgres is 13.x. Latest version of Microsoft SQL Server is 2019. But what Google provides is 2017. So these are the only versions which it provides. Managed one. And basically, this is nothing but a virtual machine. In very, very simple terms, it's one single virtual machine with a specific machine type with a built-in database like Microsoft SQL Server, MySQL or Postgres. So basically, because it's a virtual machine, you are definitely going to have a configuration, the machine type configuration. So the maximum, the most powerful database which you can have in GCP is going to have 96 vCPU, 624 GB of RAM. This is the maximum you can have. You cannot, as of today, maybe later it can become 128 vCPUs, but currently it is 196 as of today. To start with, it was 64. When I started my career, it was looking at, I was seeing it as 64. I guess one and a half years back, they made it as 96 cores. Basically, the reason why I put this bullet point is cloud SQL instance are basically vertically scalable system, meaning you start your database with, say for example, 4 vCPU, 15 GB of RAM. Some more data is coming, performance impact is happening, so you want to increase the machine type. So from 4 you make it as 8 vCPU, 30 GB of RAM, something like that. You can keep on increasing it. You can make the same machine more powerful. So that's your vertically scalable capability, right? So you can make the same machine more powerful, but it has always a technology limit. So the saturation point is there, which is 96 vCPU, 624 GB of RAM. So it's only a vertically scalable system. You already saw one of the drawbacks there. So it is vertically scalable. So what's the opposite of that? Horizontally scalable systems are also there. Usually, no non-relational databases are horizontally scalable, like Apache HBase, Cassandra, MongoDB. These are all horizontally scalable. But when it comes to MySQL, by default, it is vertically scalable. Postgres, by default, it's vertically scalable. You can make it horizontally scalable with options like sharding and all. So sharding and all options are going to come if you want to make it, but it's going to be a little tricky there. So what could be the drawback of a vertically scalable system? Only one single system. So scalability could be a problem there. That's one thing which you need to keep in mind. We'll try to address this vertical scalability and horizontal scalability later with a different product called a spanner. So you can have HA, you can have a master and a failover kind of an option setup with Cloud SQL instance by just a small checkbox. You create a failover replica. So what if basically a specific zone goes down? What is going to happen? Because Cloud SQL instance is going to be on a virtual machine, we provision virtual machines in a zone. So your master or the main database, if it's provisioned in a zone, if a zone goes down in a specific region, it will automatically fail over to another zone in the same region. So that is called as high availability. So you can have a failover, regional failover easily. So, and you don't need to do anything extra there, folks. Just a small checkbox, you turn it on, or a radio button if I'm not wrong. Just turn it on. It's going to scale up. Sorry, automatically fail over if something happens. Some scenarios you may want to have horizontal scaling, but only for read operations. So when it comes to database, it's only zonal level. Yes, from one zone to another zone in the same region. We are going to do a demo on that, so don't worry. You will see that in action about it. So when it comes to scaling, right, in some cases, you may want to do horizontal scaling only for increasing the throughput. For example, let's take a library application. So there's a library which you have started, online library in Mumbai region. Many people are reading lots of books from this library. There's an app, and all those transactional stuffs you are keeping it in Cloud SQL instance. It is working fine. But of late, it has become very popular that other parts of the countries, from other parts of the world, people are also visiting your website. So, but they are not buying anything, but they are at least viewing it. So you want to increase some throughput. So more read operations are happening. So they wanted to see a preview of the book. So you want to increase it. More traffic is coming from US, EMEA, and all. So what you can do is you can create read replicas. What is read replica? In very, very simple terms, in a database, you do only select statements. Any read-only operations you want to do it, that's going to be from a read-only replica. So what is a read and write? It's a master. It can read, basically do select statements. It can also do data manipulation language, insert, update, create, all those things. So when it comes to vertical scalability, it's only read and it's read and write. When it is horizontal scalability, it's only read operations. Only read operations is supported. Read replica. So that's basically your Cloud SQL instance, folks. So not much to talk about it. A standard database offering. So where can you use Cloud SQL instance? Wherever you have used database in your day-to-day work, you can use Cloud SQL instance. But basically, only three options are there. So MySQL, Postgres, and Microsoft SQL Server, and the versions are going to be important. Why? If there is a higher version, maybe the backward compatibility may not be there. Sometimes it's going to work, sometimes it's not going to work. So basically, that's the feature of your Cloud SQL instance. Basically, vertically scalable system has some upper limit with the machine type, limited database offerings, and limited use cases wherever a database comes into picture. So you can have a front end in your virtual machine, and you can have a Cloud SQL instance. The previous use case, you can have a Cloud SQL instance so that it's going to be fully managed by Google for you. So that's the key part here. Now what we'll do now is we'll do a demonstration. So I don't have much slides on Cloud. It's a database, that's it. So wherever you can see, now this is the first time we are going to use a demo where we are going to save some state also. We will create a stateful application where the state is going to be persisted. You can query it, all those things. So now we learned a database. We'll try to use that. So first demo which we are going to do is we will first provision a Cloud SQL instance. How it looks in GCP.
Excuse
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
Vivek this side. I think increase when we will increase the resource that will require some downtime, man. I think so.
Yeah, it's going to require downtime because it's a virtual machine at the end. So if you change the machine type from N1 standard 1 to N1 standard 4, the virtual machine is going to go down and come up. So there's going to be a downtime. Without downtime, you cannot increase the machine type, the configuration of your Cloud SQL instance. Downtime is
Actually,
required.
I had a questions, similar questions like suddenly there is a your application with a 10,000 workload. Suddenly 15,000 users has logged in. How will you scale your database? Though it is a MySQL, it will not horizontally scale. So what you can do? This was
We
the
have to
question.
you
Yeah.
have to change it. There's not going to be a downtime. There's going to be a downtime. Without downtime, at least in Cloud SQL instance, it's not possible. But if you want it without downtime, all those things, the product which you can use is Spanner there.
Okay,
At least
means
we
we
will have a
can
downtime.
that we can create a read replicas and we can expose a MySQL proxy, so that proxy will send read request to master and sorry, write request to master and read request to
No, 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 no,
read.
no. There's nothing like a proxy here. So what's going to happen is only to increase the throughput. Now that 15,000 or 10,000, whatever you say, if that writes are more increased, sorry, read operations are going to increase, I can add more read replica. That is possible. Sorry, that is possible. But more write transactions are happening, meaning you can only increase the machine type of your master. Definitely there's going to be a downtime required. So if it's more of read operations, then I can keep on the fly, I can keep adding more replicas, read replicas. So
Oh,
if to increase my throughput, I don't have any downtime. I should be able to do it very easily. But if it's the right operation is getting slowness, many people have opened up the connection, then the only option is to increase the machine time.
okay,
And
means
downtime is going to be required.
how the read, I mean, request will be distributed to master and slave. That's actually my
There's
question.
no master and slave concept itself here. There's only master. And what you have is the slave is not going to do anything. It's only a read slave. It can only read data if you have. For example, simple. Let's take it's a e-commerce, sorry, it's a net banking application. Month one, on the first week of the month, so on the first day, if the salary is credited, uh, the transaction is going to happen, the read and write operation is going to happen heavily on the first week. From the second week onwards, it's going to be always read operations only, because nobody will have money in their account. It's going to be just checking what is the transaction happened, read operations. So maybe if the trend is there, so second week to third week, it's only read operations are more. You create more read replicas so that you can throughput can be increased. But in the first week, it's going to be little more on your write operation side. Make sure your machine type is going to handle that. That's it. So read and write happens only in your master. And there's no slave here. So there's no slave concept here. So it's not a NoSQL database where you have those options. So basically it's a master. That's it. Read is only the read operations it can do. Select, basically, nothing else. We'll do a demonstration on that. So you'll see a difference between a master and a read replica, or the main instance versus the read replica. So what we'll do is we'll create a Cloud SQL instance. We'll create a Cloud SQL instance and see the various features of it. And once we see that, it's going to anyway take around 10 minutes to provision. What we'll do is once we provision it, we'll do a small migration, very, very basic one, where I have a MySQL instance. MariaDB is actually the open source version of MySQL. MySQL, when it was acquired by acquired by Oracle, my bad. The main team of MySQL forked that code and created an open source database called as MariaDB. So MariaDB and MySQL almost is going to look the same. So what I have in my local machine laptop is a MariaDB running. So I'll show you how a specific database is going to be migrated to Cloud SQL for MySQL using lift and shift, where I'm going to use my Google Cloud Storage as my staging environment. So two products we are going to learn. One product we already know. We are going to learn another product leveraging what is Google Cloud Storage all about. Okay. So first, let's provision a Cloud SQL instance. So for that, let me just go to my Cloud SQL instance. So under my databases, you see an option called as SQL. So when I click on SQL, I get this complete details which we saw. So let's try to click on create instance. These are the options which you have, the same versions which we saw in the slide. So since I have MySQL or MariaDB in my laptop, I'm going to use MySQL. And the experience is going to be the same thing, irrespective of whether it's Cloud SQL or Postgres or MySQL. So it's going to be fully managed by Google. So click on create a Cloud SQL instance for MySQL. Give a name. So give a name. So let me give it as Cloud SQL minus batch 6. So that's my Cloud SQL instance ID. Now there's a password which you need to generate. So one way you can use this generator tool. Now of late there are some products, some instances, some scenarios where I had to use Cloud SQL instance. So what I used to do is I used to do something like this: generate the password like this, folks. A very complex password, 3 times generated the stuff, making my password little complex. So this is one way you generate your password strongly. So this is going to be a good way. Now I have a password here. Where will I keep this password, folks? Where will I keep this password? If I were to do it in native form in GCP, where will I keep it? Any thoughts? Or at least if it's on-prem, where will you keep this kind of a password? A database password. Vault. Vault is what you are going to keep it. A password vault kind of a stuff. Absolutely correct. Now, if you have such databases and you have database credentials to store, and definitely you should never keep it in source repository. You should never keep it in your Google Cloud Storage. You have to keep it in a vault, as Deepak, Aman, and Anil Kumar mentioned. So does Google has a vault? till last March, they did not had a vault. So they were relying on third-party vaults like HashiCorp Vault. From 2020 March time onwards, they started their own secret manager, a vault where you can keep this stuff. So let's explore that also. So I have generated a password. Let me copy this. What I'll do is go to my security. What is TPAM? So sorry, Mangesh, I don't know the acronym. So go to your security. You will see something called a secret manager. So this is where you keep all your secrets, folks. All your passwords, all those things. You can use this. I have already created something. Let me just delete. So this is one option which you can leverage very frequently. For checking out the password using an incident. Okay. So let me create secret manager. Lets you store, manage, secure access to your application secrets. One of the possible secret is what? My password, database credentials. So I'm just going to copy this. I'm going to call this as MySQL DB credentials. Credential. Now I can upload a credential if it is required, or I can paste it. So hope my password is fully copied. Yeah, starting with O, ending with P. Okay, fine. That's my password. That's it. So now, where do you want to keep this? You can select a region. Usually people select two regions. So you can select two regions if you want for redundancy purpose, or if you feel no, let Google choose the region automatically, you can leave it as automatic. Just leave it, it's going to choose it. Now you can also this secret is encrypted with Google managed key by default. So don't get confused with your encryption with the key. The key here is the thing here is you are keeping some secrets. For that keeping that secret, you are also putting using an encryption basically. So by default, it's going to be Google managed encryption. You can also use customer managed encryption key also is what they are saying. So customer and managed encryption key is basically going to be in command line because it was recently launched. So by default, it's going to be Google managed. So the password which you just, it's going to be also encrypted, which is an inbuilt feature. So that's it. I have my credentials. I'm just going to save it. Create a secret. Create a secret. And now why I showed you this feature is if you are working in an organization where you should not even share the password via your organizational chat or collaborative environment, like uh, something like what Microsoft Skype for Business or IBM Lotus Notes or anything of that sort, Slack, all those things. If that kind of a restriction is there, what I usually do is create a database, put the credentials in the secret manager, then give this access to the team. And there may be lots of credentials. So what I do basically, only that credentials I give the share it and do it. So with the concept of the same thing, show info panel, create a user group or a user, whatever it is, share them the credentials. So for example, if I just give only this DB credentials to a person called as Mahesh at learngcpwithmahesh.com. And he should be only able to see what? Only the secret. So I go to secret manager. There are two roles which I have to give usually. Accessor role, allowing to access the payload. What is a secret? Plus also able to view the secret. allow viewing the metadata of your secret. So both I'm going to give. So this way, this person is going to only see this secret. I'll show you how it's going to work. So I have given Mahesh this role. Now let me add one more secret, folks, just to show you that Mahesh can only access one secret. So create one more secret, service account key. So I can also upload service account key here and securely share it. So click on browse. We had already downloaded one, if I'm not wrong. This is the key. In the beginning, we did for our signed URL, right? We generated one. I'm just going to upload it. So this is my signed service account key. I can also create a secret out of it and share it securely with a developer or somebody who wants to access it. Now, if you want to view it, just click on view and you will be able to see the content. You'll be able to see the content. Now I have two secrets, folks. Two secrets managed in secret manager. Only one secret is shared with Mahesh because he is a DBA. He does not need to know the service account key secret. So what I do usually is I just click on this, share this URL with that person. So let me open up my Edge browser and show how he's going to access the stuff. Directly share that URL, that specific keys URL, give the access and share it. He should be able to see it. Let me just show you how it works in a very simplistic way. You don't need to do any custom roles, all those things. Just give those two predefined roles, accessor and viewer from the secret manager, and you should be all good. So is my this thing opening up? Yeah, it opened up. 1 minute. It opened up in a different window. This is Edge browser, folks. So let me log in as, I'll just put that URL. And I've already logged in as, okay, Mahesh. I need to log in as this user. Let me log in. Log in with the password. Actually, Mahesh does not have any access to this project, batch 6, but only that credential is what I need to share. So I have shared it with him. And once it comes up, let me show you the stuffs. Now you see the user is Mahesh. There's no project selected because it is an individual key which you have directly shared, which is MySQL DB credentials. Now if I click on view secret, I should be able to view the secret. This was my password. Now I use this password and connect to the database. Now I have securely shared the password. I have not put it in a Slack. I have not WhatsApped. I have not even sent in an email. Still, the secret is in Google Cloud Storage. Sorry, in Google Cloud Secret Manager. So good option. Now you may ask, what if he goes back? If he goes back or clicks on Secret Manager, it's going to throw him an error. You don't have any access to list all the secrets in batch 6 project. That's what it's going to show. So if I just go back, only one key is being shared. Now if I share the other URL, let's see whether it's going to work. This other URL. So this is learn GCP 2028 user. Share, copy this URL, put a tab, and when I try to see it, it's going to show me an error that you don't have permission to view or the necessary access, to be very specific, to view this specific key, which is called as service account -key. You see that you don't have sufficient permission to get this specific key, but the key which I shared, I'm able to see it. Now, this is how I can share credentials or secrets very securely via Secret Manager. So, hope that's clear, folks. Now, a question for you. If I were to give access to all the keys for Mahesh, how will I do it?
This conference
Some
will now be recorded.
sorry, folks, some issue with the stuff. I don't know what was the issue. Uh, the question was, I guess, the question which I was asking was, if I were to share all the secrets to a user or to a group, any secrets which is created, how will I do this? How do I give access to a specific person who should have access to all secrets? How will I do it? Any thoughts? Now, the one which we saw was one specific secret was shared with one specific group or a person. So if I were to share everything, how do I do it? That was a question, folks. How do we do that? Any idea? How do we do it that, folks? I want to give access to everything. Basically, you don't use info panel. Just go to your IAM. Go to your IAM. Give it at the project level. Give it at the project level that user access to your keys. So just do it here. Yes, Anil Kumar. So just go do here at a project level. So whenever you are doing it at in IAM, it's going to be at a project level. So just give the necessary roles for that person to see that secret secret manager accessor role, secret manager viewer role. So what I have done is at a project level, I'm doing it at a project level. So you see now this user is having this role. Now if I switch to my Edge browser, just click on retry, I should be able to see both the secrets. I should be able to see both the secrets, and new secret when I create it also, I should be able to see it. So one it at an individual secret level means you have to use show info panel. If you want to give it at the entire project level, just go and add it at an go to your IAM, cloud IAM, and give that user the access. So that's how you're going to give it. I hope that is clear, folks. So let's just wait for the thing to come up. Then it's going to get it confirmed that it's going to work. They can see everything. Mahesh can see every secrets basically. Taking time. Let me just refresh the screen. Let me just refresh it once and show you. Let's just wait for it to show up. Okay, now it is showing up. So I should be able to see my key also. I should be able to see my key also. So because I have done it at a project level, basically. So if I just go back, I should see both the keys or both the secrets, basically, because this is done it at a project level. So I hope this is clear, folks. Slightly a jump, but because a secret came, I thought let me just show you that part. Now let's go back to our Cloud SQL instance creation page. We have created a very strong password. The versions which you can have 6, 5.6, 5.7 and 8.0. And to be very frank, there is no MySQL instance called as 5.8 in the history itself. So MySQL after 5.6, they changed it to 5.7, and then they changed it to slightly a huge jump. They went into 8.0. The reason why I'm saying MySQL 5.8 is not there is you may see some various sources, and I myself have seen this question in in my recertification, where it was mentioned MySQL 5.8. Such a database does not exist. So meaning basically, if such a database does not exist, usually you have to downgrade to 5.7 or 5.8. That was the answer which I gave basically. So versions are going to be sometimes important, at least MySQL version. Let me use the latest one. So let's use the latest version. So gave a name, generated a password. So I'm going to hide this password, and now the version is 8.0. Then scroll down, choose the region and the zone. Basically, now you have, it's basically a zonal resource. If I keep it as single zone, in case of outage, no failover are not recommended for production. High, if I make it as multi-zone, actually it is not multi-zone. It is only dual zone only. So what happens is whenever one specific zone goes down, it failovers to another zone in the same region. And it is also shows it increases the cost. Basically, it's going to be two replicas. One is going to be like a silent failover replica which keeps on synchronizing the data. When something goes wrong in that specific zone where the master is there, the failover replica becomes the master automatically. So let's select Singapore. That's it. So I'm selecting Singapore, and if you are very particular about a zone, you can specify the zone. Pick any zone, secondary, different from zone. So what I can do is I can do something like this. I'm very particular. We know the importance of zone. We have seen it in our virtual machine class itself. The importance of zone is, so some GPU, certain resources are available only in that some zones only. So what I wanted is I want a very specific zone. The primary is going to be in Singapore A zone, and secondary has to be in B zone or C zone. Let's make it as C zone. I'm very particular. So I can just mention this option very easily. If you don't want, Google is going to decide based on where the resource is available, whether it's in C zone, B zone, or A zone, they are going to decide that. If you are very particular, you can give this option. Good. Now hide this. That's it, folks. If you just mention the region, password, all those things, you can just click on create. You are going to have a cloud SQL instance with the latest version running. Straightforward one. So, but as a cloud architect, we should also explore some few other stuffs, some extra configurations. So let's explore that also. So let me just expand this one, the customization which you can do. So by default, they have now changed the machine type has to be 4 vCPU, 26 GB of RAM. So which is going to be too high for me to afford. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change my machine type. So the machine type can be high memory, standard, lightweight, or shared core. They have different options there. So when I make it as high memory, the max which I can go is, oh, they have changed the entire user interface. The max is, so this is the max. So let me try something. I've never tried something more than this. It's going to work. Okay. The maximum is 96 vCPU, 624 GB of RAM. So 624 GB of RAM. So the max is this one as of today, the max which you can go. And usually since databases are memory intensive, so you see high memory, standard, but you don't see high CPU because they are not CPU intensive. So usually it can be a general machine type or it could be a high memory machine types basically. So let's go with the standard one, lightweight. Let's go with standard. That should be good enough. 1 vCPU, 3.75 GB of RAM. That's it. So that's the machine type which Vivek was asking. So if slowness is there, the number of, because 1 vCPU, 3.75 GB of RAM will have a number of connections limit. If more people are connecting, so you will have slowness, all those things. If you want to increase it, you have to increase your machine type. So to increase your machine type, you have to have a downtime. So we'll see that demo also, maybe next week. Next, after the machine type stuff, you have the storage, which is the most important thing for a database. So you get two options, folks. SSD, which is really highly recommended if it's going to be a production database where you want high queries per second and throughput. If it is for some development purpose or something, you can go with HDD, which is going to be a magnetic one. So basically, this is nothing but a virtual machine with that specific machine type, and you're going to add a data disk, which is SSD or HDD in simple terms. So let's go with SSD itself, and minimum we can go is only with 10 GB. Below this, you cannot go. Below this, you cannot do it, and you can go up to how much? You can go up to 30 terabytes. You can go up to 30 terabytes only. This is an important concept, folks. You may get questions on this. So the maximum volume which you can have in a powerful cloud SQL instance is, if I make it as powerful, they changed the interface very badly. So it was so easy. You can have the most powerful system. Even the most powerful system cannot take more than 30 terabytes. So this is again a limitation which you need to keep in mind. Now, next week we'll discuss if it's more, how will you address it? There are a few options which you need to think of. but one Cloud SQL instance cannot take more than 30 terabytes. So let me just add this as one line in the cheat sheet before we forget it. So Cloud SQL instance, Cloud SQL cannot have more than one Cloud SQL instance. Instance cannot have more than 30 TB of volume. That is one thing which you need to keep in mind. So max is 30. The minimum is 10, and I'll make my machine type smaller. One vCPU is good enough. Now, machine type changed to N1 standard. The storage is SSD. Storage capacity, I have made it as 10. Now, the beauty with a managed service which you get are features like this, folks, which is turned on by default. What is this? Enable automatic storage increase. What is this going to happen? So basically, it's a database, right? More insert happens, more storage you need it. But if you start with 10 GB, now you don't know, maybe there's a promotion, there's going to be n number of people registering for that promotion or for that event, so your database storage may increase. So if this checkbox is turned on, right, to start with it may be only 10 GB, but once the promotion or the event ends, it would have grown automatically to 25 GB. So you don't need to do anything extra, but just turn on this checkbox. By default, it is turned on. So which means the storage will keep on increasing to what limit? 30 terabytes max. So this is a cool feature which you get, and again an important or a highlight of a managed service. If this was not on Cloud SQL, but if you have installed it on a virtual machine, you have to go and manually increase the size. Connect back to the demo which we did, resizing the disk. The same concept works here, but without you running those two commands, something like grow partition, resize to fs. Those two commands, you don't need to do it. It's going to be automatically done. How does this work? Basically, there's going to be a cron job or a job which keeps on running every 30 seconds or every minute, checking whether the storage is hitting the upper limit. So upper limit here is 10. If it's coming very close, if it's coming very close, it's going to automatically increase, add few more GBs automatically. But one of the biggest drawback of this one is, if you turn on this in a dev environment, assume it's a dev environment, you have turned it on. Maybe you did some, there was some issue, so production data has to be dumped into your dev environment. So this, anyway, you have increased your automatically storage increase. The storage may come to 50 GB. Now you have fixed the issue. Now you don't want to have that production data. You clean up your tables. So when you clean up your tables, you want to reclaim that 40 terabyte, 40 GB back. You cannot do it. You cannot do it. So storage always is going to increase. It cannot be shrunk. It can be expanded. It cannot be shrunk. It's like our age. Age can only increase, cannot reduce. So just keep this in mind. When you turn this on, keep in mind, you cannot reduce it back. If you were to reduce it back, the only option is export your data from Cloud SQL instance, create a new instance with a lesser volume, lesser storage capacity. Is this part clear, folks? This is very, very important. So turn on this only in production if you feel the data is going to increase. Otherwise, the storage can never be shrunk. Keep that in mind. Okay, so I'm just going to keep it anyway. Our data is going to be less than 10 GB, so I don't have any problem. I'm just going to keep it as default. Under your encryption, you get only two options. Look into the documentation after the class. You will see Cloud SQL instance only supports Google Managed Encryption, which is no configuration required, or you can go with your customer managed encryption key. Only two options. Where is this coming? Because there's a storage component, right? That's where this encryption is coming into picture. If there's no storage coming into picture, the encryption is not going to come into picture. So I'm just going to keep it as the default one, which is Google Managed Encryption Key. Customer supplied encryption key is only supported in two products, folks. One, in Google Cloud Storage. Two, it is supported in a persistent disk. Nowhere it is supported. For no other product is supported currently. There are some works going on where they indicated it's going to be available in one product called as BigQuery, which we have not yet seen. But customer supplied encryption key is only available in two offerings only: persistent disk and your Google Cloud Storage. So let me just leave it as Google Managed Encryption Key. Then move to the connectivity. So this is a managed service, right? So then how do you connect to it? So that's where you need to have a IP address, basically. So you need to have a IP address, and there could be two different types of IPs which you can have: a public IP and a private IP. Private IP is going to be really a cool feature which we need to explore more. A database having an external IP address looks little odd to even think of. Some little bit of history here. When Google started their Cloud SQL instance, they had only two products, MySQL and Postgres, and we were forced to use public IP. There was no private IP itself, folks. It was like so discomfort for many customers to use a database with a public IP address. So they had to protect it with some whitelisting, all those things. So after a long wait, Google launched this feature called as private IP feature. So what we will do is we'll turn this on also. So you can turn on and off your public IP anytime you want. But when you turn on a Cloud SQL instance with private IP, you cannot turn it off. Once enabled, you cannot do anything. So you have to keep it forever. So unless you delete the instance. So we are going to explore more on private IP because that's going to be the most secure way. I'm just going to turn this on. When I do this, it's going to ask, what is your network? So since we have not done much about our networking, I'm just going to leave the default network which we have. Do we have a default network? Okay, we don't have a default network. Why? Maybe when we did our what was that? When we did our cloud functions, cloud run demo, we deleted our VPC, right? So afterwards we did not create it. Okay, I have to do this one more time. Go look at VPC. There's no VPC. Let me create one VPC. So you see the connect. So Cloud SQL instance, if you are going to use, or maybe for now, let me make it as for now public IP only, for at least for the demonstration. VPC creation is going to take time for us. So private IP address, maybe next week we can explore it. Public IP only we'll do it. That's it. Now, when you have a public IP address, you should authorize certain IPs, whitelist certain IPs. So that is one way of authorizing it. Or you can use something called as Cloud SQL proxy. Everything we are going to look into that in our next class. Don't worry. But these are the different ways you are going to connect it. One, by authorizing a specific network. So if I want everybody to connect it, I'm going to add a network, something like to the entire world, 0. Which is really the bad practice, opening to the entire world. So never do this. Always put a specific range. Okay. So currently, let's just leave it as default. No whitelisted stuff. And we want to go with public IP. Click on the next part. This is the highlight of your managed service. Backups automatically turned on. So you don't need to do anything. Just it's automatically enabled. It's automatically enabled by default. Why? Because you have already mentioned you want a HA multi-zone. If I had mentioned it as single zone, then I would say your backup, you don't want a backup or enable point in time recovery, you can disable it. But when you mention high availability is required, backups are going to be required, point in time recovery. So you can go back in time and looking at the transaction logs or the binary logs, you should be able to restore back the data. So that is where this comes into picture, basically. So you have some advanced options, how long you want to keep the retain the data. So you have those options there. So this comes handy when you turn on HA, high availability. So if I just go back, There's my that's thing. Sorry, they changed the UI, so difficult to recollect the stuff. Multi-zone. If I make it multi-zone, backup is mandatory. You cannot disable it. You cannot disable it, but you can mention when you want to take the backup. And it's going to be a 4 hours window usually, and it is in your local time zone or local time zone. So if I mentioned it is something like 12 to 4 o'clock in the morning time, uh, the backup may start at 1 o'clock. It's not that that's going to start always at 12 o'clock midnight, end by 4. No, in this window it's going to run is what it's going to indicate. So that's an option which you get, which is inbuilt, folks. You don't need to do anything. This is the highlight of managed service. Now, if you show this to a DBA, he will really appreciate it, because as a DBA, he has to do backup, restore it, all those things. But here it's already managed for you. And you can also do some maintenance stuffs. So you can have a maintenance window, because assume this 8.0 has some vulnerability. Google is going to provide a patch. So whether you want to upgrade that patch, all those things, you can mention that what time you want. Only on Sundays only you want to do it, or any time is okay. And what is the order of your updates? If there's an issue with 8.0, do you want to roll back to 8.0 some minor version is going to be there? Any, if you mention, it can be upgraded or downgraded. If you just mention always later, only upgrade, downgrade it. So it's your choice how you want to mention the maintenance part. This is also a cool feature, upgrading from one version to another version easily. Nobody can provide you, so only a database administrator can do it. Now the cloud providers are providing it very easy. So less work for database administrator, focus more on database tuning, all those things. Very cool feature. And the next part which you get is flags. So what is this flags all about? So every database will have some specific configurations. For example, if it's MySQL, you'll have these flags, these many flags. Usually, if it was an on-premise, or if you have installed it on a virtual machine, what the DBA will do is they will log into that virtual machine, go do some changes in the MySQL. Usually it's going to be a mysql.conf file, a configuration file. These are the parameters there. So they go change it and restart the instance. This is how they do it in on-prem. Now, when it comes to managed service like this, you will not get access to the virtual machine box, to the virtual machine. So whatever you have to do, you have to play around with this flags. I had a real incident with one of the DBA. He had 10 plus years of experience, but all his experience was in on-prem only. Now, first time he was doing something in cloud. So I had provisioned him a cloud SQL instance. It was a Postgres, if I'm not wrong. So, and he was every time, and I created a cloud SQL instance and gave him the username, password, and the IP address to access it. And he was able to connect with a client which he was using, and it was working. And later some system level changes needs to be done. So he asked, Mahesh, can you give me the username, password to connect to the machine? I want to SSH into that machine or RDP into that machine. I told, this is a managed service, you cannot log in. What you get is only these IP. You can only connect to your database. You cannot log into the box where this database is hosted. So he was not getting it. So then he was asking, how can I do my changes, some system level changes? Then I told, you have these flags. Look at this flag, what is the one which suits you? So then he went and looked into it. He was able to figure it out, that specific flag. He turned it and set that. So this flag is going to really help for doing any system level changes basically. And some flag changes may require a restart. Okay, so that's some of the flag. And the last part is label. As usual, this is going to help for your billing purpose to group your various databases. Whether it's a dev environment, this is for some specific purpose, you can do that. So those are the configurations which you can do basically, folks. Basically, these are the stuffs which you can do. Now, let me click on create. So this is going to take exactly around 7 to 8 minutes. Basically, it's going to take around 7 to 8 minutes. And it's going to create two instances, folks. One is a master. The other one is, or the main instance. The other one is basically your failover replica. Other one is your failover replica. So it's going to take some time. Let's just see how it's going to take some time. So once it comes up, I'm going to have an IP address. The public IP address which you're going to get is a static IP address, folks. So it's a static IP address. It's going to take some time. So by the time this comes, I'm just going to show you, we cannot do the demo today completely, but I'll show you what is there in my database, in my local system. So for that, I'm going to use my, this is my local machine, folks. This is my local system. So the configuration wise, I'm using the same email ID. I'm using our same project and all. Now what I wanted to show you is, I have a database running. So MySQL, I will connect to that. -H stands for the host. So local host, it's running in my local system. I'm going to use local host. You don't need to mention it, but I wanted to make it very clear that I'm connecting to my local machine. So -U stands for the user, -P for your password. Okay, I forgot the password then. Awesome. I have connected to my local MySQL instance or MariaDB. So this is what it shows. Now there is a spec, and if you cannot understand the commands, no problem, folks. These are going to be done by a DBA. The whole purpose why I'm doing this demo is to show you how migration stuffs are going to be done. So for that purpose, I'm going to run some SQL commands basically. So I'm not going to run some complex SQL commands, very simple one. So I have logged into a database instance. There are going to be lots of databases which you can have. To see those databases, you can type this command in MySQL called as show databases. And this command varies from database provider to database provider. In Oracle, it's going to be totally different. In MySQL, it's going to be different. Postgres is going to be totally different. So these are the databases which I have. So by default, you will have these three databases built in. These are system level databases, which is always going to be there. I have a database called as world. So how do I switch to that database? Basically, I have to do use, let me just slightly make it like that so that you can see it. Use world database. Now I have changed to world database. Now inside this database, what will you have? Usually tables. To show the tables, you can type show tables. It's going to show some 3 tables. Let me just show what is the content in this table. A simple query I'm running, select star from city, limit only 10 rows. So some 10 rows are shown from this table. So similarly, I have 2 more tables called as country and country language. You want to look into those tables. We're just exploring the table content, folks. Some country details are shown. So that's it. So basically, I have 3 tables in a database called as world. My whole intention now is to migrate this database into my Google Cloud SQL option. How do I do it? So a small migration step is what we are going to do, basically using an option called as MySQL dump. Every database will have a dump option. So if it's Postgres, you are going to have PL dump. For Microsoft SQL Server, you have something called as a service called as, what is that called as, ST, some name is there actually. So every database will have this option to dump the data. So in MySQL, you have an option called as, if I just exit it, I have an option called as MySQL dump. Dump the schema. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to dump all my world database content. Once I dump it, I'm going to basically upload this stuff into a Google Cloud Storage bucket. Anyway, in my local system, gsutil is there. I have configured my project. I should be able to run gsutil copy command. Once it comes to Google Cloud Storage, from what I can do is I can import the data into my Cloud SQL instance. Two-step process for migration. Now, a question for you people. What should be the storage class I should use in this case? Multi-regional, regional, nearline, cold line, archive. What should be the data storage class I should use here, folks? Good, Shripal. And if you can specify, if you use that, what you have mentioned, Shripal, you have to add one more information and tell me. Vivek got it correctly. Shripal, 50% correct. You have to add one more information there. What is the kind of stuff which you are going now? It's a data processing or a migration. So it has to be regional. Yes, Anil, B, Vivek. So it has to be either regional or standard region storage class. Standard because it can be region or multi-region. So I'm going to use standard region storage class. So basically do a MySQL dump, do gsutil copy to a Google Cloud Storage bucket, which is regional. Afterwards, we can import it from our Cloud SQL instance. So let me just show you a small script, and the script is already available in the Google Drive. You can just go and get it. In day or module 4, you should get it. This is the script, folks, and it is written in batch script. If you are running Windows, it's going to work. If you want to change it to Linux or Mac, you have to do some slight changes. This is the first command which I'm doing. MySQL dump everything to a file called as db_dump.sql. Afterwards, I'm going to run gsutil make bucket, a regional one in Singapore, and the name of the bucket is this one. Afterwards, I'm going to use gsutil copy dump.csv file, sorry, SQL file to this. Simple. 2 or 3 commands, I'm able to do a migration, a very basic migration. So before I create this, I just wanted to show you whether there's any bucket whether do we have that bucket or not. Our Cloud SQL instance has been provisioned. So if I just go to my storage bucket, is there any bucket? Let's verify it. Okay, we have this bucket. Okay, only one bucket, or let me just delete it. I just need 5 minutes more, folks, to show you this part. No buckets. Okay. Now I'll run the script. This is in my local system. So what I will do is, if I put di minus, so this is the file which I have. Migrate dot MySQL dot MySQL hyphen migrate dot batch file. So let me just run this. When I do this, what's going to happen is the first step is a dump. For the dump to run, it's going to prompt me for the MySQL password. So let me give that password. The password entered. Now the dump file is created is what it indicates. So let me just wait for that to create. So what it is logging, actually, this line it has logged. Finish dumping the data. The next part it's going to do is create a bucket called demo-gcp-mysql. Creating the bucket. Created. Now the regional bucket is created. That's what it indicates. Good. The last step is basically it should upload this or copy this from my local system to my Google Cloud Storage. That's it. Done. Now if I do dir -b, you should see this dump file, which was not there previously. Curious to know what is the content? Let me just show you that. This is the dump, folks, which contains about the tables, city, country, all those things. The entire schema and the data is dumped. Now it is also copied to our Google Cloud storage. Let's just verify it whether it is there. So there is no buckets now. If I just refresh it, I should have a bucket with the same name and it is regional. That's the most important thing. And if I look into my content, it's going to have that db.dump. So our first part of the migration is done. The data is already in Google Cloud storage. Now the only job which you need to do is basically go to your Cloud SQL instance and import that data. So how do I do it? Just click on this instance, click on import it, and you can mention the bucket name, where it is. You can just mention it. This is the one. That's it. You import it and it's going to work. It's going to import, but I'm not going to import it because it's almost more than 5 minutes I took. So I don't want to do it. So just wanted to show you how we can do it. So next week when we do it, I'll create a Cloud SQL instance well in advance. Then I'll show you how do we do the remaining part of the migration. So what we did was halfway through, we just stopped it here. From our local machine, we got it into Google Cloud Storage. Once it is in Google Cloud Storage, things becomes very simple because it's all internal products, Cloud SQL and my Google Cloud Storage. Interaction is going to be easy. I can easily do the migration part, remaining part. We'll stop it here, folks. This is the end of lecture for today. If you have a hard stop, you can log off. But if you have any questions, happy to answer. So I'm stopping it here. Any questions, let me know. Happy to answer. I took already 5 minutes extra, sorry. Any questions, folks? There's one question. What is a typical data lake structure in dev, staging, prod? So, what is a typical data lake structure in dev, staging, prod? You can put it, Vivek, you can put it. So, Shripal, the data lake, we have still not yet come into our big data stuff itself. So when we start with our big data, we can talk more. Or at least if you were to use Google Cloud Storage as your data lake, you can have, for dev, you can have one project. Use your Google Cloud Storage as your data lake environment. For staging, you use another GCP project. Every environment is going to be one GCP project, Sripal. So you can have multiple projects basically. So usually you should have multiple projects. No, not in the same. So if you do it in one bucket and multiple folders, that's not going to be a good strategy. So basically these are different environments. I would propose to use or suggest to use basically different GCP projects altogether so that you don't have any issues with the access, all those things. There's one question from Vivek. There's one question, let me answer it. Okay. You have been asked to set up a DR solution for a non-critical database with multiple disks. The application, okay, let me just copy it.
Just post it in a notepad and let everyone evaluate what they advise. Actually, I'm a bit confused because image cannot be created for all disks. That I am aware.
Let me just, yeah, let me just do it. I'm just copying it as copied by pasting it as shared by this thing. So now let me read out this. You have been asked to set up a DR solution for a non-critical database, not critical, with multiple disks. Okay. The application can be stopped for hours without creating major issues. So you can also have a downtime. So the data must be recovered at the beginning of the last day. The solution must be simple and inexpensive. what should you advise? Create a custom image of the instance root disk and use it for recreating the VM in the another region. Set auto delete flag to false for the persistent disk and make a regular snapshot. Save the snapshot to Google Cloud Storage. Use zonal SSD persistent disk, regional persistent disk, daily snapshot to create this thing. Are the options correct? So you want to create a DS. So put it into auto delete. It has to be very cheap. So very cheap, which I want to go is custom image is going to be little expensive. Snapshot auto delete flag to false for the persistent disks and make regular snapshots. So a regular snapshot is going to be a good choice. So you snapshots to save the snapshot to Google Cloud Storage. You can it should be as inexpensive as possible. SSD, regional SSD, zonal SSD, daily snapshot to Google Cloud Storage. This is non-critical. Save the snapshot to Google Cloud Storage. Set the auto and is it on a virtual machine? This is on a virtual machine. Okay. Multiple disks. Auto delete to this thing to the flag and make regular snapshots. So if you make regular snapshot, save the snapshot to Google Cloud Storage. I would go with if I put it in Google Cloud Storage, can we start for hours without major issues? Must be recovered at the beginning. Okay. So if it is in snapshot, I can easily restore it. If I put it in Google Cloud Storage, save the storage. To be very frank, right? Snapshot actually gets stored in Google Cloud Storage only. It gets stored in Google Cloud Storage only. So you can just search in the net and you'll come to know this option has no difference basically. So you keep it in, if you take a snapshot, the snapshot always stored in Google Cloud Storage only. That bucket is not going to be accessible to us basically. So here, if I have this thing with between these two options, say the snapshot to DR for a non-critical server with multiple disks. So DR for a non-critical stuff. So whenever you want to do this thing, you take a snapshot, put it into Google Cloud Storage. I would go with 2. So data must be deleted, must be recovered at the beginning of the day, at the last day, must be recovered at the beginning of the last. The solution must be inexpensive and should be advised. What should you advise? Snapshot, both are snapshots. Snapshot option is going to be cheaper, first of all. Now it's between your 2 and 3 is what you have to decide.
For me, I
If it's
think me also have chosen second, but there is no answer. That's why I thought let's have a discussion, because first option is not correct, because multiple disk image of multiple disk
for
can.
even for snapshot, you have to do it for multiple disks, but they have really clearly mentioned persistent disks. It's already multiple there. So you are going to take multiple snapshots. It's not that snapshot can take multiple disks. So I had shared this information, right, with you people. So if it's disk, so whether it is custom image or only, there is
I lost that link. That's why I post this question, because I do remember you have given a link in which
yeah.
in
Yeah,
which
so machine image is going to be the only one which is going to help you to take the complete stuff. So if I just go here, so only option which can take for multiple stuffs, which is currently in beta, is Google Machine Image. It can take stuffs for, sorry, It's going to take multiple disk backups easily. Whether it is custom image or snapshot, it's going to be no only. It's no only. But what why I dropped option A is because custom image is going to be complete. It's going to be expensive. They are expecting an inexpensive solution. And if you just take the image of the root disk, nothing is going to be there because your data is going to be in data disk. So option 2 looks like a better choice. Basically the persist, and there are, it's plural here. Take regular snapshot. But if you take regular snapshot, the cost is going to increase basically. In this one, if I put it into Google Cloud Storage, from the storage, basically you keep your snapshot in storage only. But here explicitly you're putting into a Google Cloud Storage which you can access, and you are going to restore it when you want it. So, and anyway, they have told you can wait for hours, no major issues, without creating any major issues. Then because here there are multiple regular snapshots. If you keep on taking regular snapshot, the cost is going to increase. So C looks like a better choice. C looks like a better choice.
Okay.
Very cheap, very cheap. When you want, you take a snapshot, use that snapshot, restore it, and do it whenever you want. Don't take it regularly. Otherwise, it's going to make more expensive. That's the one. Because they wanted an inexpensive solution.
Okay,
And
let's say
SSD is going to always make it expensive. Yeah, go ahead.
I have a 10 disk. I can take a snapshot. All 10 disk and can store those disks.
10
Snapshot.
snapshots.
Yeah.
10 snapshots, not one snapshot. 10 snapshots
10,
actually.
10 snapshot and cloud storage. One each for each disk actually.
Correct, correct. Any other questions, folks?
I was confused between second and third, but I was about to choose second actually. That's why I put what could be the possible solution.
But if you ask me literally, snapshot is going to also get stored in Google Cloud Storage only, but you will not have access to that bucket. If you explicitly put it, you will have access. This regular one, many snapshots, was the one which could make it more complex or make it more expensive. Putting into Google Cloud Storage to some extent may be what you want. You're not taking regular snapshots. Only you want, you take snapshots. So that's going to make it little cheaper. All right.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Simple answer is 3, but better answer seems to be yeah, but they wanted it inexpensive basically. So multiple snapshot means multiple copies are going to be there. So you're going to have a cost for that. Yeah. All right, folks, if there's no more questions, we'll stop it here. I'll share the recordings. We'll resume back on next Saturday. All right. Have a great week ahead. See you on Saturday. Thank you, folks.
Okay, bye.
Thank you.